So, Madam Chair, we have quorum at this stage.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Debbie Douglas, as many of you know, and in accordance with TCHC's bylaw number 2, the committee voted during our in-camera session today is to confirm my appointment as the chair of our Tenant Services Committee meeting today. I want to welcome you to our public session of today's committee meeting. As you know, for the last year, we have been meeting virtually due to the health pandemic. I will ask people to mute if they are not speaking, please. Thank you. Let me begin with an acknowledgement that the land each of us are on, where we hold this virtual meeting, is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Toronto is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I also want to take the opportunity during this month of the celebration of women to acknowledge my long line of women who were forcefully brought to this land over 400 years ago. It is on their shoulders that I stand, and I am grateful. Beyond the decision that I would chair today's meeting, there are no matters to report out of the in-camera session of today's TSC meeting. During the session, several items will be brought forward for information to the committee. We will hear from our Chief Operating Officer, Sheila Penny. We will also take a look at the CSU annual report for 2020, the corporate goals for revitalization initiatives, as well as the Lawrence Heights Phase 2 and 3 tenant benefit agreement. I know there's lots of interest there. We have a number of deputants wanting to speak to that item, and you're very welcome. It's always good to see our tenants so actively involved. We will also hear a report on Seniors Health and Wellness Hub at the Towers. We will have one item brought forward, which is a OACH 2020 Work Plan Performance Report for decision. And I believe we also have a new item that will come forward once we get to the agenda. Let me take this opportunity. Kevin, are you on camera? To acknowledge that this is Kevin's last meeting with us. As of April 1st, and we already laughed about the fact that Kevin's first day of retirement is April 1st. Kevin will begin his whole new life. Those of you who attended our public board meeting heard from our board chair, Tim Murphy, who expressed our appreciation for Kevin's leadership during his tenure over the last 2 years, and prior to that, his time as chair of the board. Kevin, we wish you all the best in your new life. I can't tell you how envious I was. I wish I was the one retiring on April 1st. So thank you. Thank you for all of the work that you've done. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the vision that you brought to the TCHC, to the corporation.
Well, thank you very much, Debbie. It has been a real pleasure to be part of this group. It does great work, and I wish you all the best going forward.
Thank you. We do have a dynamic staff team as well as a dynamic board. For some of you, for the first time, you will be seeing Marcel Chalabois, who is on the call. Marcel was a new board member, a new tenant director, and we welcome him to the Tenant Services Committee as well as to the board of the corporation. It has been a year. It's really surprising how quickly time goes by. It's been a year since Toronto Community Housing activated its Emergency Operations Center in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our frontline staff continue to deliver essential services and connect tenants to supports, particularly in buildings and communities that have been hard hit by COVID-19 or which are at an elevated risk. In particular, I want to recognize the contributions of staff who work in our buildings. I'm proud of how our employees have stepped up to support tenants who are self-isolating and help agencies deliver food and other essentials to seniors and others made vulnerable and other vulnerable tenants. I also want to thank everyone at the company for setting a good example by following public health advice at work and at home. In doing so, you are protecting your coworkers, your families, our tenants, and those in our city who are most vulnerable to the effects of COVID-19. Your efforts are truly appreciated by all of us as on the board of directors. That concludes my remarks, and thank you for listening. As I said, we have a number of deputations. I believe we have 10 deputations, 5 are written. The committee members have received the written deputations. Once this meeting has been completed, those deputations will also be made public, along with the recording of this meeting. I also believe we have 5 deputations which will be given in person. As you know, when we're meeting virtually, committee members who want to comment or ask questions will put up their hands. I will try my hardest to try and pay attention to the screen in front of me, and ask Kaylee and Dara to assist as well, so I'm not missing folks. So let's move on to our agenda. Our first order of business is to take a look at our public consent agenda items, as well as our regular agenda. We have committee members. We have 2 visitors from the city today. Denise Andrea Campbell, who is the Executive Director of SDFA, Social Development, Finance and Administration, and Juliana Carboni, our Deputy City Manager. In my notes, it says Deputy Mayor. I didn't know, Juliana, unless you have plans that we haven't heard about. But I hope Juliana is on. I'm asking that we move 4F up in the regular agenda once we get to that approval. If I don't hear any objections, we will move 4F to follow immediately after item 3, business arising. Consent agenda items, anything to be held here, committee members?
So we should canvass for conflicts as well.
Oh, thank you, Dara. Any conflict of interest based on today's agenda, both consent and public? No? Any comments or questions? Anyone is holding any item from the consent agenda? Okay, no conflicts have been declared. Can I then have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented? Thank you, Francis. Seconder, John, thank you. Okay, to the public agenda, the regular agenda, as I said, we're moving 4F up to follow 3A. Hearing no objections, can I have approval of the regular agenda as well, please? John and Uba, I'm going to assume that you've put your hand up. Okay, business arising from the public minutes.
Just a motion to receive.
I'm not sure if there are any comments or questions. Hearing none, motion to receive. Francis?
Just have a question. Oh, it's coming to May the 4th. It's the
Yes.
arrears performance measures. No problem. Thank you. No problem.
Thank you.
Yep.
I need a seconder to Francis' motion to receive the.
Receive. Second.
Thank you, Paula. Okay. Item 4, 4F, TCAC Community Safety. Sheila, you're on. Juliana and Denise are also here to respond to questions that we may have, but Sheila, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the report that is in front of the committee today is to seek the committee's approval to appoint committee members to be part of a community safety advisory body. Our company is committed to enhancing community safety and acknowledges that safer communities are built through collaboration with tenants, social service partners, the wider community, and that enforcement is not the primary path to achieving that outcome. So to fully explore our commitment to safer communities, we are asking that we consider the following: the role of the board and Tenant Services Committee. This committee has indicated an ongoing and specific interest in providing input into our directional approach to community safety. Committee members have a depth of experience that we believe will inform and enhance this work. Management are recommending that committee members participate in the development of the parameters for the review, the ongoing oversight of the work, and the framework for this work developed with the committee will also be informed by members of staff of Toronto Community Housing and the city, represented today by Juliana Carboni and our executive director for SDFA, Denise Campbell. The second element that we believe we must give special consideration to as we work to develop safer communities, we've got to recognize that our CABR strategy outlined how the work that CSU specifically can be reconceptualized to address systemic issues that disproportionately impact Black tenants. Our CABR strategy calls on a proactive, solution-oriented approach. It will be achieved through the implementation of an 8-point plan, which the board has approved to address anti-Black racism across the company. The third element of consideration as we develop this strategy and as we implement the strategy going forward, we've got to ensure local input and decision making. Just want to point out for the committee that with the reorganization, the 3 regions, the 88 tenant service hubs across the portfolio, we're bringing services closer to tenants, and in each hub, staff operating within community safety and support will deliver the services that we design together locally to tenants. The fourth element for consideration and why we have our city partners with us today, in 2020, City Council directed the Tenants First Office to review the Community Safety Unit as part of the annual mandate direction from the city as shareholder. And so we need to ensure that we are aligned with the city as we consider community safety and the future of the CSU unit. We know that violence and crime has a significant impact on the day-to-day lives of our tenants. We've got to build on our efforts today with key partners to consider the future delivery of community safety across the portfolio. We have an opportunity to reimagine with the input of committee members how we can create safer communities, and that is why the recommendation is in front of you today, that the TSC committee appoint committee members to be part of a community safety advisory body who will work with TCH staff and city staff, define the mandate, the principles, develop governance options for a review of our community safety activities, including the role of the community safety unit for board approval. And with that, Madam Chair, Juliana and Denise are with us to answer questions about how we can move this recommendation forward.
Thank you, Sheila. Committee members, questions or comments?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to be clear because it seems like we have a lot of things going on. And when Ms. Campbell came to the last TSC, it was about the overall community safety approach that the city has. including the mobile units and changing the way the police are operating for people that have mental health challenges. But I think ours is very clearly defined by the VRP, community safety. It came out of the VRP, and what the role of CSU is in community safety. Is everything balanced well? And I just need to make sure that the mandate that we're looking at is clearly along those lines, Madam Chair. I need to hear what that is, if it's going to be everything or if we're very clearly focused here.
Sheila or Denise or Juliana, can you speak to scope of the proposed committee, please?
Because the city's supposed to be doing an independent review on the CSU, and we'd asked them 2 years ago to come back on the VRP. We still haven't had a deep dive on that, so I'm assuming that'll be part of that. So I'm assuming that independent work will now not be independent. It will be this partnered work. So I just need to be very clear so we can give board direction here. Thank you.
So Madam Chair, I'll start and then hand it over. I think Denise has lots to offer. We're looking to sit down with the appointed members from TSC, develop the mandate, the terms of reference. I believe in the last Tenant Services Committee meeting when we discussed this topic, the concern was that we get the terms of reference right, that we get the structure of the committee right. So we are here with committee members today to get those committee members appointed and then sit down with us, with TCH, with our city partners, develop that terms of reference mandate, make sure we're covering off on the right things to do the best work. And
I just need to be clear what it is we're looking at.
Yeah.
So I'll start and then hand it over to Denise. We're looking at community safety across the portfolio. We're looking at how CSU functions as a provider in services that they provide, how their work is aligned with engagement activities that we undertake with tenants, with economic development, with program delivery. There are 3 facets, we believe, to community safety in Toronto community housing: engagement, community development, program economic development within that body of work, and community safety delivered and supported by CSU. So those are 3 components of work that we're undertaking in Toronto community housing. We need to line that work up with the activities that you heard in the city's presentation in our board meeting, with the Safe TO plan, with Project Engage, with policing reform. So we have our body of work in Toronto community housing. We need to line up with our city partners and get committee members' input into that work. And I'd ask Denise to also comment if you could.
Thanks, Sheila. And thank you for having us here. Certainly the scope that Sheila just described is how we are understanding the work as well. So certainly Councillor Fletcher, when we came last time to talk about broader safety, strategic safety initiatives and planning underway at the city, was to give you a context of broader work that we are doing that we think will provide some guidance to a much broader preventative, supportive commitment and vision of community safety, but the work is very, very specific. And I think Sheila has outlined that quite well. So the primary task here is to review the community safety function and unit and how that work is structured, how it happens, what the objectives are, and how how it aligns to the other broader city priorities and outcomes related to community safety. It does. One of the things I heard clearly at our the last meeting with you was taking into account the different context of community safety across TCHC communities, different TCHC communities, how violence and safety manifests itself. So that will be part of our analysis of this work. And the principles that Sheila has outlined in terms of the importance of considering and integrating an anti-Black racism analysis, ensuring that the work is grounded and engaged, tenant engaged and informed. Those are also key parts of how we envision the work being done.
Juliana, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you very much. I think that pretty well covers it. You know, the ultimate goal is to make sure that TCHC communities and tenants are safe. They're living in vibrant communities where they can pursue their opportunities and their dreams. And, you know, that's a very multifaceted issue to contend with. And I think the only way we're going to be successful is looking at it broadly, making sure we're making all the right connections and have all the right integration points. The community safety unit is one important component. And, you know, the focus of this review is to really understand how best they can contribute to that overall goal in terms of their role and function and how best to govern that.
Thanks, Francis.
So would the committee be engaging tenants as well through this whole process?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now would this committee, who would this committee be reporting to, the Tenant Services Committee or to the city?
So our understanding is that we would seek membership from the Tenant Services Committee and work with committee members to set the mandate, terms of reference, direction, develop some governance options, but report through TCH's Tenant Services Committee through to our board.
Okay, thank you for
Can you speak some more in terms to follow up to Francis's question around tenants engagement? How are you envisioning tenants being engaged in a working group?
So we are, and again, this will be a point of discussion when the advisory body is formed. But at a minimum, as we form the terms of reference for this work, we would like to engage with the tenant members on Tenant Services Committee. And then we have a structure in the hubs with tenant leadership coming into play that we would like to take this work out to for further input and engagement.
My understanding of the question, and I may be wrong, Francis, was will tenants have a seat at the table? But not only tenant directors, but tenants themselves.
Yes, and that was my question. And I guess Sheila, sorry, Debbie. So would it be sort of the same model, at a smaller model that we did at Falstaff, where we had tenants and we had housing staff at the table, bringing forward recommendations? So would it be that sort of model, but of course at a citywide model rather than just focused in that one area? Would it be similar to that?
So I believe that we would like to start with the tenant representatives that are on the committee, and then
tenant directors.
The tenant directors, and then work out with the advisory body how we engage locally with community. But Councillor, to your point, when we have strategies that we're developing within a neighborhood like Falstaff, we've recently done a whole lot of work in Lawrence Heights, then we would engage locally with the tenants that live within that community.
Uga?
You answered part of my question, but I was thinking maybe to reach out to tenants and do town hall meetings where we consult with tenants and input their, entire input is part of the process before we go to table by tables, because so that way it's more holistic way. That's what I was thinking. Would that be possible?
So that is the model that we used when we developed the CABR strategy. We reached out in broad forums to tenants, and we could absolutely undertake that work.
Paula?
Well, obviously, I think we'll get the terms of reference and it will come back to the committee for approval.
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
so all of those things that folks have raised, which are really important about how we're going to work with tenants and the touch points for tenants, will be part of the terms of reference and a plan for that. That's what I'm going to assume, right, Sheila?
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is just setting the frame here. I just want to remind everybody that the board was very happy to have Ms. Campbell and the Deputy City Manager come here to the last tenant services, but we still have an agenda item that says that we might set up our own, the board might direct its own work around the VRP. So I think that if we agree to this approach today, that we're stepping back on that, but I would not want to say that we are saying we're not ever doing it. So we will be putting that on the shelf to see if this will suffice. I think everybody knows that this is really focused, and I don't want to see this go too far, but it really is focused starting with the VRP and a 30% increase in special constables rather than a focus, a community focus. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's a great idea, Sheila. I prefer that than having to set something up separately. If we can get this right, it would be great. And we'd be reviewing that VRP approach, reviewing the effectiveness of that.
Exactly.
I think reviewing the roles. I mean, I don't see special constables involved in economic development. That's not a role. I think we have other staff for that.
Correct.
So we now really need to see, is everybody in their lane? What are the lanes? Is everybody in their lane? Are there things we need to shift? We only have a finite number of resources. So how are they being deployed? And then the big issues of the day that we're dealing with at the board in Toronto. So I think that would be fine if we can do that, if that's everybody's understanding. But I don't want the kitchen sink. I want this to be very clear. So if the city is fine with that, then we should do it. If it is a really broad, wide everything that we're going to do, then I think we should reconsider.
Sorry, John.
Yeah. So Sheila, we're presently going through a refresh of the tenant engagement and governance model. And ostensibly the reason for that is to get an understanding of, what is on the mind of tenants. What are they complaining about? What is bothering them most? And we know that community safety is close to the top of the list. So I'm just wondering, do we not already know? Do we not already have a means of knowing what's on their mind in order to direct our staff to address the problems that are already evident? I mean, we do a lot of consultation. I think we do a lot of listening. We have people on the ground that can tell where the problems are and to make suggestions. We do our best to hear from residents. Why? I want to just ask, why do we need this committee? I hate to, it seems like a little more bureaucracy. It is a structure, which is not a bad thing, but I think we already have a structure in place.
So we are evolving a structure under our new operating model, 3 regions, 4 pillars of service, right? One of those pillars of service is community safety and support. Within community safety and support, we have a team that does engagement with tenants. They are reaching out, we're establishing tenant leadership. Tenant leadership comes to a table, forms a community action plan. The community action plans that we have on record say that 192 of our communities identified safety as a priority. So we do have that mechanism that is developing locally within community, supported by the community safety and support pillar, which is engagement, community development, program delivery. Again, not CSU. There's another team. Nadia Govaya leads program and partnerships that look at who are we partnered with, what programs can meet the needs of individual communities, how do we roll out economic development. That's the second cornerstone in community safety and support, followed by community safety, our CSU unit, and the services that they provide to the community. So we do have a structure in Toronto community housing, well supported. We also know that our city partners have other structures out there that can also inform work in our company, provide opportunity for our tenants. We want to make sure that we're linked, that we're tied in to that structure. You heard Councillor Nunziata today speak about Project Engage. That's one example. There are many examples. Denise and her team in SDFA have opportunities for our tenants. So we have a structure, we're implementing this structure. We want to make sure as we implement the structure that we get it right, that we are reflecting the will of committee, of the board, and that we have the right partnerships built with our city service manager. So it's
Just
a
sounds like-
hot topic.
Okay, I know it's a
Important
hot
topic. Yeah.
It sounds to me like we have a lot of structures in place now, and I'm just wondering if we need to layer on another structure. And I also would say that the people that are probably best to sit on this committee are unfortunately the counselors and the tenant reps, and I know it's not like the counselors don't have enough to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly the direction I was thinking, John. Francis.
But I think to John, I think this is very important, even though we do have a lot to do, and I'm willing to be on this committee. I think it's very important to form this committee. I think we need to coordinate our efforts in partnership with the city, with Toronto Housing, and with tenants. I don't know if you recall in 2010, when I was on Toronto Housing Board, we did have town hall meetings throughout the city to hear from tenants on what their concerns were. And yes, Sheila, you're absolutely correct. Then it was safety. It was number of security cameras, tenants not feeling safe. We need to partner, and we need to partner with everyone, that the city, the police, tenants, to come forward with a coordinated approach on how we could work with the tenants in our buildings that don't feel safe. And I think forming this committee is the right thing to do. I support it, and I'd be more than happy to sit on this committee. And I have to say as well, the Police Services Board is also forming a committee where they hope to have partnership with the city and with the different levels of government as well. So I support it 100%. So that's my view on it.
Great. So there is a ringing endorsement. I'm also thinking I'm hearing from other committee members. John has raised some ideas that we already have structures in place, but I don't think you were saying let's not form the committee. I think what you're saying is let's not go and try and figure out the problem. We already know what the problem is. Let's look at solutions. And I would hope that, Paul, I see you. I would hope that we're not looking at community safety as a policing issue only, but that we were looking at community safety in terms of economic engagement and community development, using the brilliant staff people that we already have at TCHC. Paul, a comment?
Yeah, I'm in favor. I just want to remind everybody the mandate was to review the violence reduction program, and if the way we've set that up is going to meet our target, and that's for us to review and make that decision, that it is not about policing, it's about community safety and whether the violence reduction program that was put together meets those needs. And the city was going to review the CSU. So I don't want to boil the ocean. I want to be really clear. Are we paying people to run barbecues, to hold whatever, or are a CSU, or are there others that should be engaged in that way in the communities? That's just one question here. So I am in favor of that. I don't want to see it as this is not a big happy party with the police and the city, and this is a very clear look at what we're doing and if we're on the right track. That's what I understand, because for 2 years we've been asking all these questions, and this is now we're at it. So I'm very happy. I'd like to suggest that we have a number of members on this committee, been on this for a while. Debbie, you've raised these issues over and over. Uba, you've raised them over and over. So I would like to make sure that we have the folks who've been plugging away at this be able to be on this forum to plug away at this one, because it really is either this is going to work or we're going to have our own, which is still sitting on the back burner. We could still have that.
Okay.
Are there other experts that we might want to bring in there? But we need to have a terms of reference and a plan of work.
Absolutely, and that will be the first business once the committee is struck. Dara, would you draft a motion, please, around this? So what I'm hearing is that the TSC is recommending that a joint committee of the city and TCHC be set up to report to TCHC board through the TSC, and that the committee will be made up, comprised of members from Toronto Community Housing TSC Committee, the City of Toronto as determined by the city, tenants, and when I say tenants, I'm not speaking of directors.
So I believe the ask for the committee today was to commit.
Darrett, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I did notice that Marcel had his hand up and it
Okay.
just might have.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marcel.
No,
I completely
that's
missed
okay.
that. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Marcel?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I think this is a good idea. And also, like, I was reading in some of the, one of these big piles that there was a program, I think it was a day in the life with CSU, where I guess tenants went out with, or maybe youth went out with CSU staff for the day to see things from their perspective and how they do things. But I was wondering if the roles were reversed. If you're asking about, like, you wanting the input from the community, maybe some of them could switch roles and spend a day in the life of a tenant and see things be with them when they're going through their daily activities, right?
Great idea.
I don't know, like.
Those are some good ideas, Marcel.
Huh?
Good idea.
Yeah, and I also, I kind of believe that you have to invest in the young ones, right? I think those things are important if you're growing up and you have someone that is putting some effort in your life, it tends to take away the negativity. Not all of it, but some of it. That's all I got to say.
Oh, thank you for that input. I very well heard. Richard Groch, will you please mute yourself? Thank you. Okay, Dara.
So I believe the request in the report that's before the committee today was to select members from the Tenant Services Committee who would form part of this group. I think in the conversation, I heard the suggestion that the tenant directors should be part of this advisory body, and I heard Councillor Councillor Nunziata indicate that she'd be willing to be part of the advisory body as well. If I've captured that correctly in the motion,
Councillor
then
Fletcher say that she would be there, that
Thank
Debbie
you.
Douglas would be there, and that
And Uba.
obviously Uba would be there.
Yeah.
And because of our long-standing efforts on this issue to finally get it out into the light.
okay. Sorry, give me 1 second.
And so I guess the question before you put the motion to those people who have been, that you named, Dara, they need to be, they need to acknowledge that they have the time and the ability to sit on this advisory board too before we put it for a motion, just in fairness to them.
That's correct. And I want to be clear again on the mandate that this is the review of community safety, is using the CSU model and bumping it up, ramping it up. Is that successful, or the other things we should be doing? That's part of the mandate here, because we've been asking for it for 2 years.
Yes, it's a review
and
of,
nothing's happened.
yeah, it's a review of the violence prevention plan and CSU and whether or not we need to switch gears.
So if I've captured that correctly, then, and if those individuals who have been referenced in the discussion, which and that would be Mr. Charlebois, Ms. Douglas, Ms. Farah, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Nunziata, are prepared to be part of the committee, I think that the motion looks like, if I can figure out how to share it.
I just want to be clear. Sorry, go ahead, Marcel. Yes.
Marcel, are you agreeing to join the committee? Marcel wanted to comment. Marcel hadn't indicated an interest.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Okay, thank you.
I just need to be clear, the mandate of the committee. So everybody who's coming understands it. Madam Chair, can you please be clear on that? And I'd like it to be very clear. And I need to hear from the city, they understand that TCHC understands that that's what the committee has been asking for a long time. So I'm going to leave that with you, Debbie.
My understanding is that the committee is to review the violence prevention plan and specifically CSU's role within that plan.
And overall community safety.
And of course, yes. And whether or not it's meeting our community safety goals.
So let's hear that that's what we all understand.
Councillor Fletcher, the city understands and agrees.
So if I can pull up I believe that this then reflects the intention of the motion to appoint Mr. Charlebois, Ms. Douglas, Ms. Farah, Councillor Fletcher, and Councillor Nunziata to be part of a community safety advisory body, to work with city staff and TCHC staff to review overall community safety, the violence reduction plan, develop governance options for a review of TCHC's community safety activities, including the role of CSU for board approval through the Tenant Services Committee. Does that capture the committee's intent in adopting a motion arising out of this report?
I'll leave that for you, Madam Chair.
Yes, I think it does.
Would you
it just occurred to me that well, John, except for John and Brian. So John and Brian will have to hold us accountable.
Could you, Dara, just change that so it says appoint directors and then the names of the directors, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. And so with that change, if we can have a mover and a seconder for that motion.
Francis?
I thought you were moving it, Debbie. I thought that was your motion.
It's okay. Chairs shouldn't move. Francis moves. We need a seconder. Okay. Thank you, John. All in favor, yay, yay.
Yay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Juliana and Denise, for attending. Thank you, Sheila, for shepherding this through.
So
have a good day, folks. Yes, okay, so we're moving back to item 4A.
Before we, sorry,
Go ahead, Dara.
Madam Chair, do you want to hear from deputants in relation to the items that are part of the Chief Operating Officer's reports at this point, or
Yes.
do you want to hear from them as those matters come up? We can hear all,
All
I think we've got
together.
one deputant.
Yeah,
Ms.
altogether, it's more efficient.
Okay, so the first deputant in relation to, actually, the only deputant in relation to these items is Ms. Gapka, who wanted to depute to the committee in relation to the tenant engagement refresh update, item 4C. Is Ms. Gapka on the line?
Testing, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Testing, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we
just
can, Susan.
Trying to figure out this technology. Okay,
Yeah, we
I'll
can hear
start
you,
the
Susan.
timer. I gotta say, listening to I've missed you, but I'm so anxious after hearing the previous conversation about community safety. This has been a priority for years. One of the top 3 priorities in all neighborhoods across the city for tenants has been community safety. And to see the way that and on governance, you set a motion and then you appoint members to the committee. And I just it was really frustrating because partway through that came up, oh, we have a tenant engagement model. And yeah, we did. We've been working on that for 10 years. If not longer. Sorry, I'm shouting, and I
Shouting,
really
Susan.
think
You are shouting. You are
okay.
shouting.
Well, but it's so frustrating because this tenant engagement, yeah, I'll catch myself, thank you, but I'm frustrated. It's hard to do it like this on WebEx. You can't see me, so let me begin by saying I use pronouns, and they're she, her, and elle français. I'm a tenant at 145 Mutual, and this particular proposal has been put on hold, trying to get it perfect, delayed. There was a restructuring just as we implemented it. And you know, I've missed you. I missed this anti-Black racism. I have skimmed through it, and you have the most awesome policies debated, but you have extremely, I'm going to try to find a word I could say out loud, but I am so frustrated and annoyed about the lack of implementation at the ground level. I'm just reading my report here, so yeah, I've been working with the city. I see people left with the Toronto Police Services on the Mental Health and Addictions Advisory Panel, working on community safety across our city on the City Accountability Network. But you'd think that, but without a tenant engagement system implemented, it's how do you connect with tenants? And all of those delays have put us in a pandemic situation where we're still trying to figure out at a policy level how to get it right. And we don't need a perfect plan like tomorrow. We need a really good plan yesterday. I'm reading for the first time the outcome from my building, and it looks like it's on page of 54 in the report. The former tenant rep at 145 Mutual Street, a tenant leader, 52 tenants signed up, voted on the building model. We got 2 community reps, and we have pages and pages. And with all due respect to the tenant engagement person, this is the first I'm reading online in a committee report the outcomes from our building. I'm the tenant leader, the former tenant rep, September 18th. Last year, 6 months later, we still don't have an engagement system in place in our building. I'm September 18th, 2020, look at that. And then February last year was when we started. And there's a long rendition of failed attempts, and it's because of the pandemic. I use the word failed just in frustration, just to tell you. I wish you could see me, but there's a good thing about that. It's too early in the morning for someone who's living in isolation for the last year. But you got to get it together and get people engaged. And I've been saying this, and I'm debating whether I should show up to this meeting or not. And I get so annoyed and frustrated, but I just want to be that broken record. I'm committed to seeing this implemented. And yes, we couldn't have predicted a pandemic, but again, you can't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. And so it's springtime. I'm looking, I got about, you've got a minute, and I've got half a minute on my clock, so we're going to be good. So, but it's springtime, and we tried to do this last year. But let's get tenants, let's really ramp up this next phase of engagement. This is a chance for us. We've learned a lot about the pandemic in the last year, about what the evidence is. Vaccines are rolling out. Yes, that's a good thing. I had my first shot. No side effects, except that I got whiskers and cat ears. No, just kidding. But that was good. So let's get people doing gardening and outdoor activities in our buildings. Let's get tenants engaged. I think we're ready to get back to it. And I just, I'll just let's see if I'm laughing. Post-retirement, let's just
Thank you,
try to
Susan.
get this tenant engagement
Thank you, Susan.
uploaded. I hear a voice in the background. I'm just
Yes,
looking at the
it's Debbie. Susan, it's Debbie. I'm chairing the meeting. I'm saying thank you. Your time has run out. We appreciate
Okay.
your passion, and we hear you. It's springtime. Let's get tenants engaged and re-engaged.
Yeah, I must
Thank you.
have a delay on my WebEx because I was looking at a different clock, but thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Have a good day. Okay, Sheila.
You're muted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item up on our agenda is the operational performance measures for February. At the will of the committee, I'll just take you through highlights. Our tenant calls to client care were up by about just under 1,000 calls when compared to the average call volume in 2020. We have had more calls from tenants during COVID seeking information. Our elevator service calls increased by 45. We have more tenants at home as a result of COVID, increased demand on elevators. I will tell the committee that we do respond to service calls for elevators within our service delivery SLA 100% of the time. So servicing elevators, our calls are up. We take that work very seriously and make sure that it has a priority. Demand pest treatments decreased by over 1,000. No tenant who requests pest treatment, even in COVID, is refused service. We believe the number of calls decreased due to us wrapping up our unit inspections, our annual unit inspections, which result in, pardon me, many pest treatment procedures happening without a tenant request. Vacancy rates, the information is contained within the report. You will see that we reached a high in the family portfolio in our RGI, rent geared to income units, of 2.57% in November. That has dropped steadily. December, January, February, we're back to 2.14%, and we are on track to reduce our vacancy rate in the family portfolio overall to 1.5% by July. I know we've got Jill Batta and Grant Coffey from our seniors housing unit on the line as well. Their vacancy rate is down from an all-time high last August of 3.34% down to 2.83 in the RGI portion of their portfolio. how have we managed to bring vacancies down during COVID? SHU has a rental campaign underway. Working with the city, we initiated a program in 2020 called Rapid Rehousing. In 2020, we housed we put tenants into over 335 units through this Rapid Rehousing program. The key to this program, it helps us address individuals coming out of the shelter system. The unit is prepared with furniture and, most importantly, with supports. So tenants coming out of the shelter system into our housing come into a unit with furniture and with the supports that they need. Those tenants are monitored closely to ensure that the supports are working and that they're able to have successful tenancy in our portfolio. It's a great program. In 2021, we saw phase 2 launched. An additional 350 units are being made available, and to date, we have leased 50 of those. We have worked with our service manager, SSHA. We are bypassing the overhoused wait list, which means we can go directly to the wait list to effectively fill vacancies. And we've initiated a bulk unit showing program that we're piloting in 3 buildings where we have a significant number of vacancies. We're doing a virtual tour, going out to 50 to 70 individuals on the wait list and inviting them to view units and sign leases. The rentable vacant units, non-rentable vacant units, because our vacancy numbers are coming down. You see in the report, the number of rentable vacant units has also come down from a high of 1383 in November. We're now at 1,225 rentable vacant units. Non-rentable vacant units has increased marginally from 2,300 to 2,424, largely due to units being put on hold as a result of the revitalization efforts underway at Don Somerville and Lawrence Heights. Rent and parking arrears have increased to 15.9 million, a $600,000 increase since the end of 2020. Largely in January, we often see after the holiday season an increase in arrears. It's fairly typical. The increase in arrears in February was marginal, around 80,000, and that's due to the good work of our teams reaching out to tenants and getting our tenants into repayment agreements. So of the 15.9 million in arrears, 5.5 million are in repayment agreements. So if a tenant is in a repayment agreement and they're current with that repayment agreement, they are no longer in arrears. We're putting a lot of attention into
I stirred that for you.
Bringing down our unmanaged arrears. So making sure that when tenants get into arrears, staff reach out to them, make the connections, extend a hand to say, we're here to work with you to get you into a repayment agreement so that you can maintain your tenancy. We have revamped with input from OACH our arrears collection process, simplified it, and again, really focusing on that outreach, early outreach to tenants who have issues paying their rent. In December of 2020, we had a 3-month moratorium on evictions due to arrears. We have since extended that moratorium through to June 17th of 2021. So what that means is that we will not be processing through to the sheriff's office evictions, but we will continue to work with tenants who are having difficulty in paying their rent to get them into those repayment agreements. Crimes against property, 77, crimes against persons, 133 against property, which is a decrease over our 2020 average. Fire incidents, there were 18 fire incidents across our portfolio, 9 attributed to cooking. That's an increase of 7 over the same period last year. We continue with an education campaign, and in our last TSC meeting, committee requested further information on false fire alarms. TCHC high-rise buildings have an average of 64 false fire alarms per building over the last 5 years. Non-TCH buildings have an average of 11.7 false fire alarms. So what that's telling us is that false fire alarms in our high-rise buildings occur 5.5 times more often than non-TCH high-rise buildings. We know that false fire alarms and the subsequent charges by Toronto Fire Services in the order of $4 million in 2020. We're working with our tenant population around education, but also working with Toronto Fire around how we can bring those numbers down. There were 296 tenant referrals made for supports, an increase of 52 referrals when compared to the 2020 average. And with that, Madam Chair, that's our report on our operational performance measures for February.
Thank you, Sheila. Can I have a motion to accept the report, and then I'll go to questions. Thank you, Francis. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, John. Comments or questions? Francis?
Question.
The rent and parking arrears, are the arrears all in tenant parking, or as you know, some of our buildings we have we also provide public parking where we charge. Is that included in the total amount of arrears?
So arrears for parking are a very small percentage of the total arrears. It's around $200,000, and it's all tenant related.
Okay, because some of our buildings we have public parking as well where we charge. So are they in arrears?
I'd have to pull that data, Councillor. I don't know. I don't have that split with me today, but we can get it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, did you say me, Debbie? Yeah, okay, so Sheila, I want to talk about the fire incidents. I mean, we're not an organization that can afford to pay Toronto Fire $4 million for false alarms. It's a situation that doesn't seem to be getting any better. Do we know if all of these false alarms are malicious, or are they misunderstandings that something might happen? Do we have any indication as to why people are pulling the fire alarm?
So we do track that information. The majority of false fire alarms are malicious.
So then
or
what
mischief.
you mentioned, okay, so you mentioned the education program. What is the education program? Or do we put posters in buildings saying how much it's costing the organization?
We've got a education campaign, posters in buildings, information that comes out in tenant loop, information on the website. We're also working with Toronto Fire Services to remove pull stations and supplement with additional smoke detectors. So we're looking at outreach to tenants, but we're also looking at possible technical things that we could do, which would make it harder to initiate fire alarm.
So in another part of the meeting, you talk about where you talk about CCTV. Is there CCTV near the the fire alarms?
So many of them have cameras on them. We have cameras on our external garbage areas. That's where a lot of fires initiate, and we pull footage and work at solving those incidents.
What can we do to improve the education that this malicious behavior is costing the organization badly needed dollars?
I would welcome input from committee members on that topic. I see Kevin has his hand up.
Excuse me, John. I think one of the big things is when you go to an automated system, like right now, essentially when you look at a poll station is relying on a human being to recognize something and then take an action to do a poll. So very much as other systems in terms of anything you want to think about, and I know you would know this from your industry, move to automated systems, you know, smoke detectors, CO2 detectors, those sorts of things deployed out, get you into an automated system. And the other thing that they do is they significantly reduce false fire alarms because there's not human intervention. And so I think that's a key piece of it. Yeah, and in addition to just continued general education, but I think that's a key piece of it as well.
And then the last question I have on this particular topic is there a prevalence of this occurring in certain buildings? Is there a clear pattern that it's in, 15 buildings, 20 buildings? There's a clear pattern. So we know where this is of course we know where it's happening, but it's not spread right across the portfolio of 2,100 buildings.
It is concentrated in I'd say under 20 buildings. There's a high concentration.
And in those buildings, are we looking to remove the mechanical mechanism, the pull mechanism then?
We're working with Toronto Fire on that. But as you know, any technical system related to fire, we have to do it really carefully because
because of course you don't want to compromise tenant safety. I mean, you still have to have, if the fire detectors don't work, then you have to have the human element involved. And then turning away from this, you mentioned the wait list. What actually, there was some work being done on the wait list a few years ago to sort of clean it up and make sure that all of the people on the wait list really needed to be on the wait list and that it was current. Can you tell me the status of the wait list, how many people are on it, and what measures have been taken to make it all valid and relevant?
So the wait list is actually managed now by SSHA, by our service manager, and they have put considerable efforts into cleaning up the wait list, and they report out on those stats through committee to City Council.
Okay. Do we have any sense as to what the wait list is?
I've seen the graphs, John. I can't remember the numbers, but they track it and report through committee to City Council. It's a high focus area for them.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for the answers.
Thank you, Marcel.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. Do you know how much it costs per false alarm?
So every time Toronto Police Services rolls a truck, I believe it's in the order of $1,800, and I'm reaching out to John Ankow to get that number because
it's every time there's an alarm, they roll up 3 trucks at $500 each. You're looking at $1,500 an incident, roughly.
Okay, and the other thing is that I have, is it the residents themselves doing it, or is it their guests?
So that's a very good question. And you'll see in the upcoming report that we have on activity with CSU, the number of trespass incidents by individuals who do not live in Toronto community housing. It's a significant number, and false fire alarms often result from guests or individuals who have drafted into the building, into the stairwells, who are pulling the fire alarms.
But they're usually the guests of the tenant, right?
Correct.
Okay, so, um, has anybody like fashioned, like a notice to tenants, like in these 20 locations, just stating to them that how much it costs per false alarm, and that in the future, I don't know if you can do this, but maybe your unit is going to be tagged for that cost, and then you'll go in arrears and you'll have to do a repayment and trespass those people that are doing it. I don't know if that's,
Yeah, that's I don't believe that we have shared with those buildings the cost of false fire alarms in those specific buildings. And that is something that we could look at. We have the data. We know what the charges are in those buildings. We could relay it to those communities. We'll
Yeah.
take a look at that. That's a good suggestion.
yeah, because sometimes, it's like speeding, right? It's okay until you get caught, then you get nailed with that ticket, and you're like, you don't want to do it no more,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Like, if I have a guest that's in my home, whatever that guest does, I'm responsible for them. It's like I did it,
That's right.
right? So I think some responsibility has to be put back on the tenant.
Good
It is a
point.
lot of money.
A lot. Think what we could do with $4 million.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Marcel. Paula, and then Francis.
I'll just stay on the fires for a minute. There's about 20 buildings where the majority of these are pulled. And those would be 20 buildings, I would have to say. Would you characterize them? You know, I like my 4 buildings where a lot of vulnerable people are living. Then there's buildings and communities with a lot of just guns and gangs. Then there's often, the odd incident, and then there's just places where nothing ever happens. So I'm thinking that the 20 buildings are part of that first, where there's a tremendous number of vulnerable people that have a number of different things going on in their lives. Would I be right?
Councillor, I would say the first and second category.
First and second category. So would they line up then with the 10 zones that the CSU is doing their work in?
There
10
are
buildings?
We'd have to run that data, but I would
That's what
not
I'd
be
like you to do.
surprised.
I'd like
Okay.
to know I'd like to know that when we come back, I want to know, where are they? 20 buildings. And then we kind of know that we have a number of buildings that really and truly are supportive housing buildings, which, just as the rooming houses have moved to Margaret's, we may and should be looking at those buildings as supportive housing. So I think when we see that, we'll understand the issues. And then I gather you would have a focused target. And I understand it, when people are doing it maliciously, they're just doing it because they're angry and they can, all those different things. So I just think we should understand how you're dealing with those 20 buildings, and I'm sure you're doing your best there. But there's 20 places where we have a particular issue. I just want to go back now, please, to the vacancies, because it really is an issue. And I know in the past, and maybe I'm missing it, Sheila, and I apologize if I am, because you know this backwards and forwards, but on our attachment 1, which has all the different issues, we have rentable vacant and non-rentable vacant. And you have supplied us previously with the non-rentable vacants. How many are held for relocation? How many are held because they're just in really bad shape? Nobody could live there. They're getting major capital repairs.
Yeah.
Is that here today? Am I missing it?
It's not here. We could reinsert it.
If you don't mind, I think it's important to understand that the non-rentable isn't what the reasons are and the numbers in the non-rentable. I also,
we'll do that.
That's a pretty steady number, that 1224. I'm looking for the costs, actually. If we were able to rent those, what would the rental be a year? And what are we missing out on? And then the other question, so if you wouldn't mind having that info for us for the board when this
Okay.
comes forward. Then there's the relocations. You're talking about the number of units are being added onto because of the relocation. So I would like to know the value of holding those units for relocation. The value meaning the missed rent. So they're paying rent at John Somerville. That's gone out of the rental market and they're paying rent, same rent somewhere else, but we've lost X amount of rental income for relocations. How much is it over how many years? And I'm really interested in who covers that. Is that part of the redevelopment agreement where TCHC would be made whole for by the developer in the pro forma and in the cost of redevelopment? Are we having those costs covered is my question.
To
For
date,
relocation, yeah.
to date, we are not.
So
Right.
I think I'd like to know how much that's cost us separate and apart from any of the other costs. So that is an important one. And I always find these really interesting. I just want to flag again that notion of buildings where there are really and truly, it's a supportive housing situation more or less rather than a straight up tenancy family units. So I'm going to pursue that a bit more over time. I just want to give you the heads up on that one, Sheila.
So it is just a little piece of information that the highest vacancy rate in the family portfolio across the city is down the Sherbourne Strip by far, right? It's coming in at just under 3% vacancy rate, and we are addressing that with the city through the rapid rehousing program. So as we are filling those vacancies, as I said, furniture and supports, and the tenants that come out of the shelter system into those units along the Sherbourne Strip are monitored. We monitor how successful their tenancy is. Are they able to cope? Are they disrupting the peaceful enjoyment? Like, we're on it with the city.
What kind of supports do we get from the city for that?
We get the dollars to pay the agency to provide the support directly to the tenant. Okay. And what we're doing in those buildings, working to establish lead agencies who will take care of the new tenants coming in, but also provide additional support to tenants currently living in those buildings. So that's a really high area of focus for us.
Thank you. I think it's critically important. And it's almost like a modular housing situation where you're moving hard to house people into a building. So there is many layers of support that are required. And if they're already difficult buildings, then even more layers of support are required. So it would be, I'm just going to ask for something for showing things, and I'm going to come to that later. But now that we have such a terrific system, and I want to thank you again for that, Kevin and Sheila, where we have the 3 zones across the city and a seniors housing, that it's very helpful if we delineate everything with the zones so that I think it's helpful geographically to understand. So even for these, that would be good to know where they all are, if they're all downtown or if they're all the West End. Thank you, Sheila. Thanks very much. Very helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Paula. So to understand that, you're suggesting that the report out be by zone.
I'm always saying, just generally, we should do, and I'm calling them zones, Sheila, and I know that's the wrong region. Thank you. West, Central, East by region, and I think that's great. But if we can just, and it will help us understand why if there's 1,224 really hard to rent places, we understand why they're hard to rent and then the impact. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
We're moving to our last speaker, Francis. I just wanted to clarify for the public who may be listening, when we talk about monitoring tenants, we're monitoring to ensure the success of the tenancy and nothing else.
Supports. We're putting supports in.
Thank you.
Francis?
Questions. First of all, getting back to the fire, would be a good idea for us to post up signs on what the penalty is. Maybe, I don't know if we have them in our buildings or not, but that would be a good idea. Crimes against property, Sheila, which has gone up. Do we know what the cost of that is? Is that within within the units or within the common area of the buildings?
So it would be across the building, across the site, across the portfolio.
Okay. So we don't have a cost of that, right? On
Cost? No.
no? Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you all. We have a motion moved by Francis, seconded by John to receive the report. All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. Good discussion, folks. Moving on to 4B. Sheila, you're back on.
Thank you. So tenant complaints, as you know, we're a service company. We learn through complaints that tenants make. I just want to point out a couple of enhancements, things that we're working on in our single stage escalation platform that we've identified for tenants to make complaints to. It's supported by a team that reports up and through to John Ankow called Solutions. Strengthening teamwork. The Solutions team, we've aligned them to the regions so that there will be representation in each region working with the general manager and their team as tenant complaints come in. We are looking for a timely resolution to the complaint. So you have heard from many tenants over the years that when they call the call center, they get referred, there isn't follow-up. So we now have a dedicated team in the call center called Solutions that receives complaints. We're decentralizing that out into the regions so that those staff that are responding to complaints are directly connected to the teams that provide the service so they can bring resolution to the complaint. We're doing training with that Solutions team to drive complaints to resolution. Once a complaint comes in, we should have the ability to pick it up, track it, either address the issue, solve the issue, or if we can't solve the issue, we do have complaints that we can't solve because of regulatory whatever issues, that's communicated in clear language back to the tenants. We are also, as you know, undertaking a refresh of our complaints policy. There are 4 consultation sessions with tenants occurring now on our complaint policy, and we'll bring that feedback that we get from tenants back through to committee. The complaint data and trends are in the report. February 2021, 222 complaints, 58 of them were antisocial behavior, 36 for building service, 10 complaints for building related to building staff complaints. What's included in the report is a comparison where we're at year over year change versus this time last year. And you can see that the number of complaints year over year has gone up by 61. We view that as a learning opportunity for our staff to improve process. And I'm going to hand it over to John Ankow now to give you 4 examples of where we've learned from complaints coming in and how receiving those complaints has caused us to change our service delivery model. John, if you could briefly outline those 4 changes that we've made.
Sure, thanks, Sheila. So the 4 examples are outlined in the report, but I'll go through them at a high level for the benefit of the committee. For the first change that we've implemented earlier this year is that for work orders that are called in by tenants after hours through client care, we now track those work orders on a periodic basis, which would involve a follow-up with the vendor at regular intervals to ensure that they're tracking to arriving on site at the building or residence, and that they deliver the service within the specified time according to their contract. But also equally important, what we've done is that we're actually calling the tenants to let them know and provide a status update, right? You can imagine that in some cases, tenants are calling in at midnight, you know, the service level window is 4 hours. You'd really want to know within that 4 hours when the vendor would be arriving. So we're, implemented practices where we're constantly providing the tenants updates on when they could expect the vendors to arrive. And then in cases where there will be delays, unfortunately, and in some cases, we do relay that to the tenants so we can book for another service request. And that change has been implemented early this year in January. In terms of the initiative related to the after hours request for no heat and no hot water, previously in the organization, we required 3 calls from a building for us to dispatch a vendor whenever tenants complain of no heat or no hot water. We conducted a pilot program between September and December and found that of all the calls that we received for no heat and no hot water, 80% of them actually had a valid issue that the tenant identified that resulted to them not receiving no heat or no hot water. So early this year, through again client care and maintenance dispatch, we have made this a permanent arrangement across the portfolio where tenants would only need to call once, and then we dispatch a vendor after hours to deal and address with the no heat or no hot water issue. So a significant shift from a previous practice where tenants could wait many hours for other tenants to call in for us to deploy a vendor. The other piece that we've implemented this year, and we've noticed a significant uptick of noise complaints, particularly during the pandemic, as folks are staying home more, is that we experienced that the noise complaints would be made to several individuals throughout the organization. So in addition to solutions, these complaints could be submitted to the community safety advisors, the TSCs, and the site staff, and at times actually made it difficult to follow up because at times you can appreciate that different sources of information, some were conflicting. So we've worked with our CSAs and CSCs and our client care team and solutions to engage with tenants and urge them to report the complaints to the appropriate channels so that we're able to streamline, first and foremost, and second, and equally important, address the actual complaint through a single channel. And last but not least, one of the changes we implemented again earlier this year is a checklist for vendors. So we had issues previously. We had vendors who did not wear appropriate IDs when they came on TCHC site. We've had complaints about disrespectful behaviors towards tenants, both in the common areas and in suite, and tenants and vendors who didn't clean up after they've done the work. So in partnership with operations, client care has developed a standardized guideline and checklist that outlines the expectations for vendors when attending the TCHC property. So as part of that checklist, we've outlined that vendors need to wear appropriate identification every time they're on site, that they are to speak and act in a professional and respectful manner to tenants, that they wear appropriate PPEs and exercise the appropriate safety measures, especially during the pandemic, and that after every work, that they maintain and clean the work environment that they've, as part of the work that they've done. And so through this work, we've not only reinforced service expectations, but ensured that the work continues to be delivered in a safe and respectful manner. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll open it up to any questions or comments in terms of the report.
Thank you,
I
John.
have one, Debbie.
Uba and then Paula.
Thank you for the report. And I just have 2 quick questions. One is if someone complains to the solution team, and let's say if the issue is not resolved, will they have a chance to escalate the issue to higher management or directors or to Sheila? And the other question is, do the people who works with these solutions and the intake center, are they diverse? Do they speak different language to accommodate the needs of tenants? Because there are a lot of tenants who don't speak English and French.
John?
So the to your first question, once the solution teams go through the process of intake, investigation, and conveying the resolution, there are times that they appreciate the tenants don't agree with the final outcome. So we do inform them, and we made this clear and have included it as part of our public-facing communication, that they do have the option of going to the Ombudsman office for a secondary look. So we reinforce that with them when we do send them the letter, the correspondence, but as well, we included that as part of the educational material that we put out last August when we did a mass communication campaign. And in terms of the diversity, the team and the ability to bridge any language barriers, the team does have at its disposal access to any translation or interpretation services as part of its daily work. So when we do recognize that there could be challenges, that they're to access those resources to bridge that gap.
Thank you, John. Follow-up, Uba? No? Paula?
Thank you, Debbie. Just on the heat and hot water, this is where Francis and I are able to do this. I have a building where there's been all kinds of problems with no hot water. And the tenants have called me and it's been escalated up in TCHC. So I'm surprised to hear there's this change because they don't know about it. That's at Blake Street. So Sheila, I'm going to ask you to look into that, please.
Sure.
One of the vendors didn't know where the boiler was when they got there. The water's been going off all the time. The hot water's been going off. And there are just ongoing issues at that particular location. The other thing is on the vendor checklist, which I think actually, if everybody remembers, that was a deputation that someone made. It might have been Cheryl Dugan made that deputation saying, why don't we have a checklist that the tenants have that they can say, well, the job was done poorly, nothing was cleaned up, there was no PPE, they haven't been here for however, 5 weeks. But this is a vendor checklist. It doesn't appear to me to be that type of checklist. So I wonder what happened to that, because that's the vendor checklist I'd like to have. People that are experiencing the work.
Sheila, before you respond, Jeff Sharp, will you? Thank you. Jeff Sharp, will you mute yourself? Thank you. Go ahead. John?
Well, I know that we are, Paula, that is an absolute requirement, right? That we put a system in place where we get tenant feedback on that work, and John and his team are working to put that system in place. John, do you want to provide an update?
Well, we now have a checklist, which we didn't have before. As a result, TCHC developed a standardized guideline checklist for vendors. But the actual request was to have
for tenants.
The tenant to be able to have the checklist if these things have been made. So if I'm a vendor, I'm just going to fill out yes, 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 everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's
so
our eyes on the job
yeah.
are the tenants. And so I'm disappointed that that's not here.
Yeah, John?
We're implementing that. John?
Councillor, there's actually the work is scheduled to be, we've established a working group that actually will be initially looking at in the next few weeks. So I hope to bring back some updates at the next TSC meeting.
Does your working group have any elected tenant directors or any of the newly engaged tenants on it? What's your working group comprised of?
So right now, it's management at the moment, but I was looking in collaboration with the group to leverage the tenant leadership structure.
Have you heard the deputation or read the deputation from Cheryl Dugan about the checklist idea? Maybe not.
Yeah, actually we have.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's obviously somebody that's
work.
thought about it. She's got some good thoughts, so I would encourage you to have some tenants who have had problems be your focus group. Because none of you that I know of live in TCHC.
Yeah, to be at the table, more so than
unless you're moving in somewhere and not telling us.
Yeah.
Then.
Okay. Thank you, Paula. Can we have a mover and seconder to receive the report on tenant complaints?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Uba, Paula. Okay, 4C.
So this, Madam Chair, this is an update on our tenant engagement refresh. You heard our deputant express frustration that we haven't been able to get tenant leadership established across the portfolio. As the committee may remember, we were planning a portfolio-wide election April last year that was delayed due to COVID. We are out in community engaging. We did a phased approach. Phase 1, 57 communities, 39 of those communities have leaders in place. I've had an opportunity to meet 7 of those new tenant leaders, and I'm very impressed by their energy and input. This report outlines the work that's underway to fully get tenant leadership in place in the first phase. Also, we are ramping up phase 2 work as well. So in phase 1, the 57 communities, the by-elections in the 12 with no leadership in place, 6 with partial, will close out by the end of April. We've got a document in the package that details community by community what the outcome was and where we're at. We are in the process of assessing the 170 communities in phase 2. We'll provide findings, an update on findings in those communities at our next TSC meeting, and continue reporting through TSC as we move through and establish tenant leadership in all communities. So as requested by the community, we've included a detailed appendice with information on the state of every community by phase. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And this will be a standing report that we bring through this committee.
Yes, Paula. You're muted.
Great. Yeah, I just had to get unplugged there. Thank you very much, Sheila. This is great. I'm going to ask for the same thing I asked for before. If you could put these by region, and that includes the seniors, because it's really mixed up. And I think that would be helpful. And previously, then anybody can see it and counselors can look and see what's happened in their zones a lot easier than going through all of that. Would that be a big ask, Sheila, to run that in that way?
No, not at all. So right now, if you look at that attachment, and I appreciate that it's very long, but if you look at the first column, you see the region,
Oh, I
central,
see.
it's very small, right? So we've got region hub, development name.
Right. I get it. Okay.
And
Those are,
there's,
I get it. I've seen, okay. But you
okay.
don't have you don't have the seniors in that
Yeah,
one.
they're
Where are
there.
they?
If
Okay.
you look under
I
hub,
see.
you
Yep.
see central shoe.
Yeah. Okay. I just think it's okay. Can you put the seniors, since they're leaving and the board is going to be selected in April? I think
Sure.
starting to have that discrete by region. I don't know if they're going to have 3 regions or not within the seniors
Yeah,
portfolio,
they
but
have a different structure.
yeah, just distinct. Here's the seniors, so that they're
Yeah.
totally different. Thank
Yeah.
you. I now notice that's by west, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't appear to be. Maybe I'm missing something. Alphabetical. Is there a page
Could-
57 west? Hub
Yeah.
95, 95, 12, 31, Willow Ridge, Capri, Jane Falstaff, Neptune. Is there a reason for that?
No, we could
Okay.
do it alphabetical. That would make it easier, wouldn't it?
Yes, and then the same thing if we did that for when you're reporting out for the ones that haven't yet
Yep.
had their meeting. That would be great. Just to be able to see it. So this is going great. And yeah, and then any particular questions they can get back. I just, to address that 145 mutual question that Ms. Gapka raised there, I've just been reading there that there's been quite a number of meetings. There's one rep still trying to get the second rep. And there's a rep who could not be eligible because they were on some other committee. One moved out and one is on a tenant staff working group. So you're not eligible if you're on a tenant staff working group, Sheila.
Okay.
Question, that's a question.
I would have to turn to Julio Rigores, who's managing this work. Julio, could you respond to that, please?
Absolutely, Sheila. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilor Fletcher, for the question. This was one of the terms of reference that we developed for the tenant staff working group. One of the requirements was that if you're informing the election process, you should not run as a tenant representative.
Okay. All right.
So that's
Got it.
is referring to that. Thanks.
No, okay. Thank you. That clears that up. Thank you very much. So it's people that are overseeing the general tenant engagement elections that they're
Absolutely.
not in the front runners. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, got it. Perfect. Thanks a
Great.
lot. Very good. This is really great. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yes, John.
Question.
John
but
C.
If I can.
So,
Paula, just a minute, please.
Yeah. Okay.
Sheila, I mean, the comments are pretty clear that people, I mean, there's a comment here, many are in fear of meeting due to stage 2, have children taking care of their elderly family members and the coming of the second wave. This was a comment from a while ago, but clearly I don't know that it's apathy. I think that it's more concern that people are expressing. Maybe it's time to put this on hold until, you know, most people have been vaccinated and we're into a better stage.
So we need tenant leadership in our communities, and we are, and I know Julio can jump in here and help me out. We are very respectful if individuals don't want to meet due to COVID, but where we can and have meetings through technology, we are trying to keep the momentum, keep things moving to get that tenant leadership established, because it's a critical piece of our service delivery. So
yeah, I just think it's you're sort of banging your head against the wall because people are, you know, I heard where, you know, a high percentage of 80-year-olds, for example, haven't even gone to get vaccinated, even though they can, because they haven't left their properties. I'm sure it's the case for a lot of tenants. They're reluctant. They're willing to go out, but they're not willing to go to a voluntary meeting.
yeah. So we are hosting things, doing our best.
And I'm
And
seeing you're doing all this outreach and then like nobody shows up.
Yeah,
you know,
but
I'm sure
some people show up.
Nobody showed up, you know,
Yeah,
and it must be frustrating for staff because they're working hard, they're trying to engage, and I mean, I certainly would not blame anybody for saying, you know, maybe we just wait till September to get back at this, or October, you know. Anyhow, that's my two cents.
Julio, you had a comment?
No, I really appreciate, John, your question, your concern. I gotta say that, you know, having been able to move our outreach methodology to phone call and online have helped to address that fear that exists in communities today. And what we are seeing is that need, in terms of tenants, that need to have their leadership in place. So and this is why we're so strict about our election process, because we understand, and the flexibility that we're building around that process as well, because we understand that fear that is in communities, but we also understand the desire for many tenants to step forward and represent their communities as well.
Thank you. Francis and then Paula. Then we have to move on, folks.
To make a point that John made, there are tenants that don't have the technology either to have virtual meetings, so it's difficult for some tenants, as you know. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out because I know a lot of tenants are not able to communicate or participate because they don't have the means of it. I just want to make that comment.
Good point. Paula.
There should be still people there that had been tenant leaders in the past in some buildings. I'm not sure that they've been thanked for all their many years of service, but that's another matter here. And I think if we can at least get phase one underway, we should complete that as quickly as possible. Focus on phase one. That's getting another 18 communities. That's half. Yeah, leaders in place, 39. No leaders, 18. And so the focus should be on the 18 communities, whatever has to happen there. I'm just interested in the shareholder direction here to maintain a system of active tenant participation and involvement, provide for tenants input in setting local spending priorities and service levels. Does that include participatory budgeting? Do all these how are we doing participatory budgeting while there is no tenant leadership in place?
So, Councillor, we have paused PB, and we did some outreach with some tenant leaders on that direction. We are also looking to direct our line PB with a hub structure going forward, and we've paused it. The
When was
community
that pause,
spaces
Sheila?
in 2020 with COVID. The community spaces aren't open. There isn't an opportunity for tenants to come together to prioritize that work. And we'll be picking it up again in 2021.
And what was the overall budget for participatory budgeting? Do you happen to know?
It's $800,000 annually.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I understand that. Okay, thank you very much for all your work on this, everybody. It's great.
Very good. Thank you. Someone move acceptance of the tenants engagement report, please. Thank you, Francis. A seconder. Thank you, Ulla. Is that you? All in favor, yay?
Yay.
Thank you. Okay. Item for employment opportunities for tenants. Next.
Madam Chair, we're providing information to the committee as to what employment opportunities we've been able to provide to tenants. The appendix attachment 1 contains a breakdown of those opportunities. We've directly placed 900 tenants across Rookie League, YouthWorks, internship programs, supported 1,200 tenants to participate in employment training, host and referred over 700 tenants to financial literacy workshops, connected 900 tenants to employment opportunities, hosted 31 job fairs attended by 3,000 tenants. So more work to do in this area, but the committee asked and we're providing an update on what we've done to date. The Nadia Govaya, our Director of Programs and Partnerships, is also online and would be able to answer any specific questions that the committee has about this work.
Thank you. Nadia, are these unique tenants? So when we say 930 referred to job opportunities, are they separate from the numbers who were referred to financial literacy, for example?
They're not unique tenants, but they're we can break it down for you if that's necessary. So it's opportunities. So for example, if you're in Rookie League 1 year and in YouthWorks the other year, we would count that as an individual opportunity.
I see. So we're counting opportunities, not tenants.
Correct.
Okay. So that clarification is good. Maybe a note when on the report, that would be very helpful. Other comments or questions to Sheila or Nadia? Yes, Francis, and then Sheila.
Yes. As far as the 31 job fairs, I attended over 3,000 tenants, which is great. Were there any job placements through those through the job fairs? Do you know?
So just above the job fairs, it says 900 employment opportunities for tenants. those are the results of the job fairs and the intervention. So those are typically externally placed opportunities. So I know there was a question around placement and tenure. We don't have that information, but we do track after a job fair how many tenants receive employment opportunities, and that's the 900 number.
So just a question, if the counselor has a business that's coming into their ward and they're asking the business to do a job fair and to hire local, and we want to reach out to some of the Toronto housing buildings, to tenants that we have within that catchment area, would we, to be able to organize that, would we be able to organize it through you? Because, you know, I think it's important that they have the opportunity, because when we do these job fairs, of course, we just advertise it with residents that live in the area. But I don't think that we reach out to any of the tenants that we have in our buildings around, you know, those businesses where they are looking to hire local.
Oh, that's a really great question, and that's absolutely a service we provide. So we typically partner with the third party. We do flyering, we do door knocks, we have a database of tenants that we would send the information to. And we find that when tenants see the TCHC logo as it relates to employment opportunities, they see themselves as having a real chance. So we posted job fairs where the TCHC logo wasn't on it and tenants may or may not participate. We found when we are actually an active partner, it tends to bring tenants out. And then we do pre-employment and support so that they're ready. We help them print their resumes. So it's worked really well in the past, for sure.
Okay, because I'm in the process of doing a job fair for a business that's opening in my ward where there'll be quite a few local people hired. So if I wanted to coordinate that job fair through you, I can do that to target, to get Absolutely. Some of the tenants in our buildings an opportunity, correct? Okay,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Paula?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the total opportunities provided here. There's one that's entrepreneurship, total tenant businesses supported. There was 32. What types of businesses are those, Nadia?
So it ranges from catering businesses to, in the last round, we had a young person who wanted to start a black hair care school. So it's typically micro enterprises that are starting to develop the ideas. So we've spent a lot of energy, particularly focusing on young people in terms of supporting them to make the connections and the networking opportunities. So what we've found is a lot of the individual business supports actually leads to employment, not necessarily to a significant entrepreneurial opportunity right now, but that's okay because it's a long-term plan. So again, it's businesses. We've had painting businesses, we've had landscaping, any opportunities where we could tap into that vendored service as well, we've done in the past too. So we had a youth landscaping company where we were actually able to get them some contracts through facilities management and that kind of thing. So we try to work with the young people where they're at.
Sorry, I'm just unclear. So youth would come together and say, we're going to set up a landscaping company, and then you would get them contracts with TCHC?
We have done that. These numbers speak to our program called Be Build Brand, where we actually bring young people together. They have to come up with their business idea and then go through a series of 12 weeks of training, and then they present their ideas to a panel. And at that panel, they get advice, they get mentorship.
It's like a dragon's den.
Yeah. Absolutely. So for the businesses that do have the capacity to support something that TCHC does, we have connected them to specific contract opportunities with TCHC.
And what kind of vendor relationship do you have then? Is it an RFP? How do you create a vendor relationship?
So what we were able
ongoing?
to do in the case of landscape, in the landscaping case, we were able to actually carve out some opportunities that we had in terms of our landscaping and create sort of a smaller contract or opportunity, so to speak. We then put it out to all of the vendor groups in our system, and we asked for folks that were interested to participate in a meeting. We then brought together the groups to see if there was any opportunities to share, and we were able to partner with tenant businesses to spread the wealth, so to speak.
So what would the value of those contracts be that you're facilitating? Any idea? Maximum value?
I would have to check on that. That was
Yeah,
done a
I'll
couple of
find
years
that
ago.
out later. So you have an approach where, because if there's not a proper vendor relationship, then that's of concern. I think it would be. So how you manage that vendor relationship once you've set a company up inside TCHC is something I'd like to know. And I can find that out between now and the board too. That's great. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Yes, Uba?
Thank you, Nadia and Sheila. This is a great opportunity for the tenants, and I'm really, really happy to see that. I was just wondering, does this opportunity also include scholarship opportunities for students?
Absolutely. So we have our annual program called Investing in Our Diversity Scholarship. So that's currently ongoing, and we get applications from across the city, and that is sponsored through third parties. So all of the funds are raised through our team, and then those scholarships are granted to TCHC tenants. So right now, I think we've raised just over $100,000 for 2021 scholarships, and we typically give out between 50 and 75 scholarships a year. I didn't include that in this report, but it is absolutely something that we do. We also work with tenants, young people as well as adults, to connect them to other externally funded scholarship opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a seconder to receive the report, please? Francis, Uba, thank you. All in favor, yay. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Sheila. Okay, CCTV cameras and crime prevention.
So we were asked by the Tenant Services Committee to provide an overview of CCTV cameras in the company. To date, we have more than 13,000 CCTV cameras. Communities, I would say the vast majority of our communities have cameras in them. It's we need to be mindful of how we deploy cameras. We're looking at safety needs, but we also have to protect a tenant's reasonable expectations regarding privacy. The collection, use, disclosure, storage, disposal of information captured by CCTV is governed by MFIPA. We know that cameras in and of themselves don't prevent crime. They won't solve our safety issues, but they're one of a series of safety measures that can help support safe and secure communities. We do not place cameras in with direct view into a tenant unit. We do place cameras in public areas, common areas. We post signage in our buildings to alert our tenants that cameras are there and that video surveillance is being used. With the use of cameras, we are able to, cameras sometimes act as a deterrent. Often if people see cameras in a space, it will influence their behavior, serves as a natural deterrent. It allows us an opportunity to review incidents that will inform measures that we take through tenancy management, community safety and support actions. We have a number of additional benefits that you could categorize as being enhanced with the CCTV system. When we're out in community, we often have tenants, and you've heard deputations to this committee, tenants asking for additional cameras. The cameras also give us history so that when an event happens, we're able to pull footage and use that footage to manage the outcome of an event. They have been used to monitor, look for lost children, and basically they provide an oversight of activity on our properties, common areas, public areas that enable us to take necessary measures to deal with incidents that occur that impact safety in our communities. So, Madam Chair, that's the balance of the report.
Thank you, Sheila. And a reminder to the committee members that you have a deputation in your package from Cheryl Dugan on the cameras. I know that we've heard past deputations asking for CCTV cameras in the stairwells in particular. So, good. Yes, John.
Sheila, there's 13,000 cameras. Do we know when any one of them is not working?
We do.
How do we know?
Through site staff, and we have a system where we can monitor outage in cameras, a system in place. It's a high priority for us to keep our cameras functioning, and we have some communities where cameras go down with great frequency and regularity, so those communities get special attention, but it is a high priority.
What's the cost to replace a camera? Roughly, ballpark?
Oh my gosh, I should know that number. My apologies, I don't anymore.
Okay.
I used to.
So,
I'd have to reach out to a friend.
It's okay. So of the 13,000, how many might not be working now? I've watched too many crime shows that show that something's taken place and the camera wasn't working.
Yeah, so I think our track record in providing footage to TPS speaks for itself. They really do rely on us to provide documented activity that happens.
And do we have a
high priority?
And do we have a capital program that is increasing the number, or is it a steady state?
So we have been increasing over the years. We will continue to add cameras that come out of our safety audits. So I would say we've established a base now, and as we're out in community doing safety audits, we just conducted one in Lawrence Heights and found that we needed to add cameras as a result of concerns after a site walk with TPS staff, tenants. So I'd say today we have a steady state that we will augment as issues arise in community.
So you made reference to the use by TPS. Do you have a number as to in how many instances the cameras were useful?
We can get that number. I see Bill Anderson signing on in the chat. John, we could get that number.
Okay, I mean, I mean, their deterrence is one thing, but then effectiveness and use in terms of you know, prosecuting a crime is important as well. All right, that's all the questions I have, Debbie. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, John. I have Marcel, then Uba, then Francis.
I just have two things. With some of the cameras, I know like here we had cameras installed, but apparently one of the downfalls with the camera is the lighting at nighttime. It doesn't really pick up much. Right. So you got new cameras, but apparently the lighting on the street isn't that great. And the other thing I was just thinking about is like in the buildings, like are all the cameras always like pointing outward and then in the foyers and hallways and stuff, right? Right on property. Do you know if there's any cameras that are facing the community, like from the street?
So
a lot of times when you see things like with the police, right, or the news, you see people running, but they're kind of like shielded from the camera, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we have a team that goes out and looks at community, looks at the most effective place to position cameras that would take lighting conditions. And for example, we have cameras on back doors of buildings, right, which are really helpful for us. And they may be placed on the perimeter edge of a property to capture activity at a door that isn't visible to the street. So we have CSU who help us position cameras. We do safety walks with tenants to understand where the areas are in a community that are of concern to them. And then we have a crew in our facilities management group who is the technical sort of experts on what camera, how to install it, how to ensure we get good footage from it. They also maintain the camera infrastructure.
I just wanted to add, to Marcel's question though, in terms of the lighting that's on the street, that is something that we need to work with the city, and Toronto Hydro actually maintains the lighting, for the street. So in terms of part of the community safety work that we do when we're doing the walks, Marcel, is to identify where on the street we could also improve lighting. We're primarily focused on actioning what we can do on our own property because we don't have authority on the street. And similarly, with regard to positioning cameras on public infrastructure in the street, to face into our building, that's something that we need to work with the city on. But it's you bring up a good point, and I think it's a continuing evolving aspect that we can take a look at.
Good. Anything else, Marcel? Very good. Uba?
What I wanted to say was just John's point and Marcel. I think we have a great system when it comes to cameras. It's just that sometimes the effectiveness, and I think Kevin answered to that, because we can look away in where we make sure the angles that they look. Because sometimes when I go to meetings or talk to tenants, I heard people complaining my car was broken. And when I go to the management and they look the camera, or they have the constables to look the camera, it wasn't clear, or it was not capturing that angle where my car is. So maybe just to really look if it captures all the angles in terms of the parking, the common area, and also maybe I remember the constables, sometimes they come and they do trainings, audit trainings, safety audit trainings with tenants, where
Correct.
they teach people what to look for, what crime looks like, how to detect, how to report, and what have you. Maybe at that time, just to have part of that training, to have to check the cameras. Maybe that's one of the things that we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you for that suggestion, Kevin.
I was just going to add, because Sheila, I think one of the things, just to get to the clarity and the volume of cameras, we've, I think, replaced all the old analog cameras and put digital cameras in to improve the quality of them. And maybe it's not all of them, but I know there was part of that program.
We have that.
Okay.
That's complete. Yep.
So that actually made a huge difference just in terms of the resolution of the image that you would get from the CCTV footage. The other thing, and you'll know this number, I seem to recall that we've doubled or more than doubled the number of cameras that we have placed in the last 3 or 4 years. Am I right about that, or have I got that mixed up, Sheila?
That's correct. I mean, the first number that I remember was around 3,000. Then we went to 6, 8, 9, 13.
Thank you.
So we have a robust system.
Okay, Francis, our last speaker on this.
Thank you. And Sheila's absolutely correct. Cameras is a deterrent. We did a safety audit at Falstaff, and Kevin, you were there, Sheila, we had the chief there. And from that, we've installed a number of additional cameras because there was a concern on the number of shootings at Falstaff, for like 2 or 3 a month. And then also at the same time, the police services put a camera on the street. That was a question about on the street portion of it, because when they were shooting, shots were being fired across the street. So that would help the police as far as identifying. And John, just on the point, the homicide that we had at Falstaff, where it was the young man was going into the underground parking. We did have a camera, and the police used that camera to arrest the 2 or 3 individuals that committed that homicide. So that is in use, and that information is given, and we were able to arrest 3 individuals on that one homicide that happened in our Toronto housing property. And I hear all the time from community meetings, from all my tenants, we want more cameras.
More
we want more
cameras.
cameras. That's all I hear. And that is a big concern of tenants in our building, especially when there are a lot of crime and where they have monthly shootings. You know, they don't feel safe.
Thank you for that, Francis. Okay, motion to receive the report on CCTV cameras and crime prevention. John, Francis, all in favor? Yay, thank you. Okay, CSU report, item 5. Bill Anderson. Bill, you're on the call, I believe, still?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Got the floor.
Well, good morning. I'd just like to highlight some of the content of the annual report, which was requested last year, as you may recall, in a new format. So, and we will continue to evolve this report as the committee requires. The Toronto Community Housing Special Constable Program was established in March of 2000 when the Toronto Community Housing Board entered into an agreement with the Toronto Police Services Board for the appointment of special constables. This agreement authorized special constables who are appointed to exercise powers of a police officer under specific situations and pieces of legislation. So last year, special constables conducted investigations, as has been previously discussed, for such things as theft, mischief, assaults, and for other less serious matters, and less violent matters. The objectives of this program are to improve residents' feelings of safety and security, reduce the level of crime and antisocial behavior impacting our tenants and TCHC communities, to enable officers to have the ability to spend more time in their communities, and to enhance law enforcement activities as required, as well as strengthening relationships between TCHC and Toronto Police Service, and of course improve safety. In 2017, CSU management implemented the recommendations from the corporate review and the Mayor's Task Force report, then redeployed resources to be better aligned with our communities and increase focus on these areas. Zone officers were specifically aligned with community addresses to develop a more intimate understanding of their communities and, of course, to build relationships, problem solve, and create successes. This now continues under the community safety and support pillar in the new alignment with the hubs. We're building that out accordingly. Additionally, officers in 2021 have been issued smartphones, and we are building a program so that this will leverage their further connection to the communities to make them more accessible as officers assigned to communities through their hubs. The appendixes in the annual report provided give a statistical overview of CSU activities and summarize the work done by CSU in 2020. I should point out that the TCHC approach to community safety has for many years emphasized the importance of a comprehensive and integrated community development approach to community safety. And I think the restructuring has just reinforced this. The enforcement is one of the many necessary components where other measures and actions may not have been successful or would not be keeping the public interest. But there are a number of activities undertaken by CSU where issues requiring tenancy management and or the need for supports for tenants are identified. For example, there's a reporting flow process engaged to initiate this. That process is a living document, and recognizing the restructuring, we are actually building it out further right now to recognize the different applications of the CSCs and the seniors housing unit. And of course, following any critical incident that occurs, the CSU process includes immediate notification to the city's Community Crisis Response Program through the on-duty staff sergeant, that is a manager available 24/7 in the unit. Last year, CSU responded to 3,123 trespasser situations, and I should highlight that that is the matters which we had to engage specifically and make reports and address the trespasser, versus under the Trespass Act, if you give direction to a trespasser to depart, they will do so, and they're compliant, it doesn't get escalated to this reporting scenario or a requirement for further engagement. So, of course, when you have third-party security guards and officers that simply give direction in this compliance, we don't necessarily capture those because it just happens, so, you know, with such volume. We also, and this was discussed earlier, CSU responded to 3,996 fire or fire alarm calls for service last year, predominantly alarm related with no active fire. Of these, 3,199 were false. 326 we could specifically identify as being maliciously activated, and 471 related to a fire. And I should point out these are the dispatch numbers through CSU. In 2020, we also introduced the use of Naloxone nasal spray with TSC approval. The training was accomplished in May, and it was deployed last 2 days of May into June. From that time to the end of 2020, it was utilized by special constables 9 times. And I should add that it was also deployed to our community safety advisors, who are also in the front line doing those safety audits and working with our tenants. And they used it a further number of times for about 14 deployments of that life-saving drug in our communities up to December of last year. Some of the many engagement activities that the CSAs and special constables involved in 2020, and despite COVID-19, we used COVID-19 measures to continue to move forward with such events. They included youth events, youth-only community walk, Halloween and Christmas events, and events in partnership with organizations in the community for the distribution of clothing, food, school, and personal care items, all made possible through community partners, as well as, for example, a dinner arranged for tenants. And in this, there was a total of 299 events. And appreciating the number of appendixes and material in the report, I would then suggest now, if you wish, Madam Chair, I can take some questions.
Thank you, Bill. Comments or questions? Paula?
Councillor, you're muted.
Sorry about that, everybody. The chart that we have of the 10 communities that are the specific VRP communities, how many false alarms were there in those communities, Bill?
On this report, I don't have those numbers specifically aligned, but I can have them pulled for you.
It's the, you know, the 10 of them with the calls for service, right? It's that chart that we had earlier in the confidential, and now it's in your main report. So from all of those, do you happen to know now, or can you correlate those false alarms with the 10 where we have CSU constantly? Do you have an idea of that now?
Just allow me to put my page here.
Councillor,
then,
I believe we'll pull that information.
Okay, I think that's important since we're concerned about that. And then I'm just going to ask you, Sheila, because I'm hearing about barbecues, I'm hearing about youth events, I'm hearing about the new structure that we have with our regions, because I've now got it right. We have regions, and then we have the general managers, and then we have all the facilities related and tenant related engagement under that.
Yes.
So I want to know, I want to be assured that all of the work that the CSU, and I'm going to ask about CSAs later because that's news to me, that's all being done under the leadership, guidance, and authority of our staff that are charged with that type of tenant activity. So I'm hearing CSU is leading all these things, and I'm quite concerned about that. I think our format and the new that we can't, everybody stays in their lane, or we're going to, Kevin, we have to have everybody in their lane before you go. This is a question for you. So how do we make sure that everybody's in their lane? Because I don't know if we need CSU to be independently organizing all of these activities when we have the tenant engagement staff, that needs to be, everything needs to be under them. That's my strong opinion, and I'd like to be assured that's the case.
So in the region, under community safety and support, we have the CSCs for engagement, right? We have program engagement, deliver program services, bill. So Nadia, we have three big pieces under community safety and support that are designed centrally, delivered locally with input from the regions. So we have three big buckets in community safety and support: engagement, community development, and community safety. So Bill collaborates with Nadia Guvaya, who has responsibility for program and partnerships, Julio Rigores, who has central oversight for engagement. But those three pieces of work that we coordinate centrally are delivered regionally through the managers of community safety and support and their teams. So when Bill hosts or talks about CSU special constables going out and distributing, Bill, you've distributed, give me an example.
Jeans and clothing and jackets, 6,000 last year. I think we have 7,000 again now.
So the CSCs for engagement would be involved in that program.
But whose program is it? So I'm having a problem here, because at the end of the day, it all goes back to tenancy management. And I think this, the whole piece here is that it's got to be about tenancy management. Yep. Because, and everything that happens aligned around safety or reports or anything has to be designed around tenancy management. And so I think this will be a good conversation to have in our committee. Exactly. Because really, is it the CSU to be collecting 7,000 pieces of clothing, having barbecue? Is that how we're envisaging that or not? And when staff are engaged in things, when I guess when Julio's engaged, when Nadia's engaged, when Bill's engaged, does it all funnel back up to the GM? Because we can't have too many heads. The second we have too many decision makers, we're back in the morass that we have lifted ourselves out of in September 2019. Thank you, Kevin, one more time for that. So I'm really clear. There can't be two decision makers. There's the general manager, the COO.
Correct.
When we're in community. Okay. So I'm sure we'll have this interesting conversation later, because this is, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. John?
Oh, sorry. What's a CSA? That's my, what, and when did they come into the picture?
Sorry, CSA is a community safety advisor. They're the team that engage in the community with the safety walks and the safety audits and the review of the cameras and lighting in the community. As well, they partner under the pillar as that component as part of the community safety meetings.
And
are they special constables?
Or are they tenants?
No.
Pardon?
Are they paid staff or are they tenants?
They're paid staff.
They're paid staff and they're part of the general manager's team.
Are they special constables?
No.
No.
Who directs them? It sounds like CSU directs them.
No.
They're under CSU.
That's what I said. They are part of the general manager's team.
I just heard Bill say he's doing that. So
that's right. I just heard Bill say he was directing them.
Well, he's advising them, but they are responsible to the general manager. Bill has the subject matter expertise.
To Paula's point about need for clarity.
Yeah, we need clarity. Thank you. We'll get it for the board.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions about diversity in the workforce. I noticed that 11% of constables are women. How does that compare with the Toronto Police Services?
Bill, would you have that stat?
I know we have that stat because I know that we previously provided a chart that actually compared the Toronto Police Service. I'd have to go back and look for it.
Are we under, or are we under what they have? Do they have a higher percentage of women? Are we aiming for more women in the workforce here?
Yes, we are. And I can't recall the date of the last time the chart was provided to the committee,
Okay.
but recall at that point in time that we were higher level. But I can't speak to today without going back and looking at it.
So I think the next question I might have asked a year ago, it's on ethnic and cultural heritage. And it has the breakdown of, various, cultures and heritage breakdowns and so on. But I don't know what diversity there is in terms of language capabilities. We've got South Asian 4%, Hispanic 1%. I don't know how reflective that is or what the language capabilities are of the CSU staff. And I would imagine a number of certainly many of our tenants, English is a second language. And we probably would be better served if more of our, if there was even greater diversity than what's shown here.
Good point.
Any comments?
I can confirm that language is not one of the things that is tracked. It has been subject of a recent discussion for some of the reasons that you've mentioned.
So for example, I don't know if anybody knows, Kevin, I don't know if you know, but what percentage of our tenants are Hispanic?
I don't know off the top of my head, the breakdown of that. I've seen it, and we can provide that. We can provide that for you.
Anyway, I think it's something to think about. We're at 11% women. Maybe that should be higher, closer. I'm sure if you're striving for that, that's good. And then I also think as we've seen in the wider community, trouble starts between police authorities and people. One, when there's mental health issues, and two, when there's perhaps a language barrier. And if we have greater capabilities in terms of speaking the first language of, the tenants, that could prove to be beneficial, very beneficial. Yes, the next question is in regard to the structure. I see that each sergeant supervisor has, it looks to be 15 special constables, and each staff sergeant has 3 sergeant supervisors reporting. Is that correct? That's on page 124. That's page 124. I'm not sure which. It's attachment 2.
Yeah, that's across. So there's a sergeant. So one staff sergeant, which is a manager per shift, and then across the 3 regions, there's a supervisor for the officers working that region out of each of the district offices.
So So each staff sergeant only has 3 direct reports.
Direct reports, yes.
Just wondering if that's could that be, could you get along with 2 staff sergeants, or is it? I'm just wondering how that workload pays up, because you've got a sergeant supervisor with 15 direct reports, and then the staff sergeant has just 3.
Yeah, the manager is also, so it's a 24/7, which requires 4 staff sergeants for the field staff to do a rotation, 12-hour rotation.
I see.
And then the manager, although the sergeants are 3 direct reports to them, they oversee all operations across the city related to CSU. The sergeants are out in the field, physically supervising special constables. Right now at a ratio, I believe, of 9-to-1. We're trying to correct that to 7-to-1, given the responsibilities. And all of the paper flow, paperwork, reporting processes come through that manager every shift.
So is there a staff sergeant on duty at all times?
Yes.
There is. Okay.
And
Okay, that's it for my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to
No,
receive.
I'm sorry, out of that, I have one more question.
Okay, Paula,
Thank you.
go ahead.
I know we asked that we're reporting and calling as Debbie pointed out, are these people all from the Caucasus? Because there's a Caucasian designation, and we've asked that just as it's black, that it is white. So I don't see that, and I'd like to ask Sheila that that is part of the way we're going to talk about who we've
So
got.
change the term from Caucasian white?
Yes, and that was made already last time.
Yeah,
So
that, yeah.
thank you.
In all of our reporting, not only here, but
That's
in all
correct.
of our reporting.
In all
Okay.
reporting. And then I don't know if we got this material, and I'm sorry, because even today, I can't believe how, Sheila, you're going to be tired after this. You better go home because there's a lot of work here. Seriously.
She's got work to do, Councillor Fletcher.
No,
If I don't get to go home, she doesn't get to go home.
She does get to go home. This is a lot here. But it has to do with, and you can work late to cover it, Kevin, because you're leaving in another week. So pick that up.
All right. I'll do that.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, did we ever get the breakdown of the new 50 officers and the ethnic breakdown? I'm not sure we ever did get that for the new hires from 2019. So if we didn't get that, would you be able to add that in for this report for us when it comes back, please?
Sure. I will check what we provided. I believe we did provide.
Did you? Okay.
We'll bring it forward.
Yeah, and to
Yes.
John's point, will you also include language?
Language, yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, motion to receive the report.
Move to receive.
Paula and Francis, thank you. Okay, moving on to number 6. Kevin.
I'll just unmute myself, Debbie. So this report provides an overview of the goals for revitalization and actually responds to a request that was made by this committee to summarize those. So I will take the report as read. I'll just summarize, essentially the the main themes and the goals that we have. So within creating vibrant and exclusive communities, we look at, one of the goals is social sustainability. So we're looking at an equity lens to create inclusive workspaces, positive connections, at all. With regard to a second goal under that is mixed income and range of affordability. So this speaks to having, affordable housing included within our landscapes. To date, we have constructed about 1,047 affordable homes. We've got another just shy of 440 homes in planning. And we have provided through financing about 240 affordable finance opportunities for affordable housing. Certainly with regard to quality urban design, we look at building communities that have that create connections with surrounding neighborhoods so that they're not blocked off, and that we actually look in the construction of the building to have them to be pleasing, to the and environmentally, sound. When we look at the design and construction excellent, the quality building design speaks to some of the architecture elements that I spoke to, as does environmentally sustainability, and so and prioritizing the tenant experience. So we're looking to make the revitalization a safer community, a comfortable community, and that we are as timely as we can possibly be in the construction process to rehouse tenants as quickly as possible. With regard to securing opportunities for our tenants through the revitalization process, there's a couple of particular ways that we approach it. One is actually through economic development, and that's primarily around supporting jobs, supporting education opportunities for enhancement, and you'll often see our development partners participate in particular programs for scholarships, and clearly there's direct employment opportunities. And we look to strengthen partnerships and work collaboratively to reduce service gaps, mitigate poverty, enhance healthcare, food security, and communication. And then the last goal that we have as part of the revitalization really gets into tenancy capacity building and engagement. You know, we have very specific engagement teams that are involved in the revitalization. And it is a chance for to help engage others within the community to become leaders of social change for the revitalized community. So with that, I will summarize at that level. And Vincent is on the phone as well. And if Vincent, if you could turn on your video so people could ask you questions,
Madam Chair,
as well as myself, that would be great.
I have a,
Yes, Paula.
I'm going to move that, this is great, and Kevin, for you to be able to say that, I'm going to ask that we refer this to our next meeting. It's very meaty. There's a lot of questions that the whole division is now looking at where it's going to land up, because Tenants First is taking development out, some whatever that's going to look like. But I would like to also have back again the tenant-facing staff in development, how they would move under the tenant side of the organization, because there's very few tenant staff in the development side. They're dealing with tenants. I also would like to know how many relocated tenants come back. I want those stats for every community. It's not 100%, it's maybe 50% once people get out and they're in another space. Let's understand what that really looks like. And then, so I want to know staffing wise, what it takes to move the tenant-facing staff to be with other staff that deal with tenants all the time. So there's learnings from both sides, and I'd like to have that as expeditiously as possible. I could move that we do that right now, but I think it should happen. And then understand in the actual redevelopments how many people are coming back, because there's two different processes. One is when you're preparing people to leave, the other is who's coming back. And get some of the feedback around the success. I think we've all noticed there's still a tremendous number of shootings in Regent Park, Alex Parks, Lawrence Heights. Like, what's going on there? We're not talking about a refreshed community when that happens. So I'm very happy to have this, but I think we've got to dig in on the tenant side, not the building side, for these revites. And it's a big meaty discussion, and people are here to talk about Lawrence Heights. So I'd like to move that, Madam Chair, that we shift this to the next meeting.
Thank you. So we have a motion. I need a seconder to table this agenda item number 6, corporate goals for revitalization, to our next meeting, which I assume will be in April sometime or May.
Probably May.
Can I have a seconder, please? Uba, thank you. Questions to the councillor?
I think we
Not
can just
seeing
refer
any.
it.
All in favor? Yeah. Great. Thank you. Okay. Yes, and thank you for your patience. I know we have a number of deputants who've been waiting to speak to item number 7, Lawrence Heights Phase 2 and 3 tenant benefit agreements. So Dara, I'm turning it over to you to run the deputations. We'll hear from all of the deputants. We have a number of written deputations as well. That's in your file that you received before the meeting. And so, Dara, could you bring up our first deputant, please?
Can I just ask that, Chair, that deputants must be addressing the issue if they're going around?
Yes, this is to, deputants are to speak to Lawrence Heights.
Period.
Thank
What's in the report?
So the first listed deputant is Trudy Ann Powell. I understand that Ms. Powell is on the line.
Yes, I am on the line. Can you guys hear me?
Hi,
yes,
baby.
you can. Minutes.
And we can hear you, lovely little one.
Yes, I'm juggling that. But good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you all. I speak to you today as a resident of Lawrence Heights community for 21 years. I'm project coordinator for Lawrence Heights Revitalization Coalition. Over the past year, residents of Lawrence Heights, with support from North York Community House and Toronto Community Benefit Network, have been engaging in a series of discussions on our navigating through. It's okay, Papa.
Chair,
Wow.
would the deputant like to wait for a minute, let another deputant go, and maybe the baby will settle?
Trudy Ann, would you like to settle the baby and come back?
And to be honest, I wouldn't mind doing it now. It's just something.
Okay,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. Go ahead, go ahead.
Juggling this little one here. Just rest here for a moment, Papa. And guys, time is running. Oh, sorry about that. Let me pick up back on what I was reading. So over the past year, residents of Lawrence Heights, with support from North York Community House and Toronto Community Benefit Network, have been engaged in a series of conversation and discussion on our experiences navigating through revitalization in our community, as well as its current and ongoing impact on residents and the larger community. We explore our everyday experiences with revitalization, with issues of safety, affordable housing, employment, and community ownership as themes that came up among resident leaders. Looking at the current tenant benefit agreement in comparison to Alexandra for phase 1, it is not equitable, especially since Lawrence Heights is the biggest redevelopment project for TCHC. Less tenants are employed, or if so, they're employed in low-paid jobs. I wonder why. Being a resident of Lawrence Heights, I see jobs allocated for residents going elsewhere. I want to say previous consultations on tenants as an input, previous consultations on how tenants has an input in the tenant benefit agreement process has been stalled since 2016, and no real conversation about community benefits to this date. Tenant voices have been vacant at this table, and they feel that their voices are being silenced and are only used when they want us to substantiate their initiative. No one is taking into consideration the trauma experienced by revitalization. No community space available to unpack trauma as a result. Right now, in the height of pandemic, community priorities have shifted. A prime example is our local community food bank, which has been displaced due to the lack of community space. Communications are not being forthright when it comes to project development. For months, we have been hearing about RFP, but with no dates or timelines. So with that, I'm asking this committee this morning to include Lawrence Heights Revitalization Coalition as one of the stakeholders in this process. I'm also asking that there is community engagement at the beginning of the process to address issues of lack of community space, employment opportunities, and communication with residents before the RFP starts. Sorry guys, I got emotional because when I talk about this project, I've been an animator for many, many years, and it just gets me emotional because it's lived experience that I'm going through. As you can see, I'm juggling my little one, but I really wanted to come talk to you guys this morning for you guys to see that, hey, residents needs to be at the table. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time out and even willing to accommodate me in this conversation this morning. So thank you all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Trudy Ann. You've absolutely been heard. We truly appreciate the work and the investment you're making in your community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, can I ask a question? Trudy Ann,
Absolutely.
you asked that, what was the name of the Lawrence Heights you wanted to be assigned where? The community group or the, tell me that again.
So it's Lawrence Heights Revitalization Coalition.
And that's made up of tenants and staff, or tenants who's in there? You're the chair. Thank you for your work.
Solely tenants.
Solely tenants. And where did you want to have that coalition more actively engaged, that you'd like us to address that, please?
So when it comes to the whole community benefit agreement or tenant benefit agreement, we want to be at the table in making these decisions, because decisions are being made and then we're left out, and then things are being imposed upon us thereafter.
So that you're not part of that decision making about what?
Well, we used to be for phase 1, right? But then that just stopped. And for phase 2 and 3 moving forward, we want to be there, right? For example, we had the animator team, but I guess the animators, the older, they call us the dinosaur, we were pushed out and new faces come in which don't know anything pertaining to the project, right? And TCAC, I'll say this, may feel like we're a threat, but we're not a threat. We were willing to work with every stakeholder in the best interest of the community.
So you're feeling like TCHC finds you threatening?
Find us threatening as tenants, especially if we're vocal in terms of in something forth to the table and so forth pertaining to anything that's going on around here. And I could go on and on, but I won't touch on a lot of stuff right now.
Thank you very much. So
Thank you very much.
I think the chair will manage that, your group getting whatever you need there be considered somewhere.
And community space is very crucial as well.
Oh, I know. I was going to ask you about that. That I had moved a motion before to look at, maybe it's coming back here under Lawrence Heights, but at least look at those containers, you know, that people use down at Scatting Court. They have them all set up. You can buy food out of them, or that some of those things, at least while this is in flux, would you be okay with some of those things being moved there? You know, the shipping containers that you get windows, you get in there, you can have the food bank in there, you can have other things in there.
Well, with consultation of the food bank and seeing what is best in terms of storing the food and so forth, so far they have a space where it is dedicated, right? But again, redevelopment and relocation is happening. They're disrupted, and now they're at the community center. And then we have Neptune and Lourdes, right? It's just more broader than Lawrence Heights, so people from there coming in. But the point is right now we don't have dedicated space in our community, and we need dedicated space as a part of the new project as well. Community hub and so forth, right? But there's a petition out for that. I guess that would be a different matter, but I'll just say it out.
So temporary space is one thing, but you're looking for permanent.
Permanent space as part of the redevelopment, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Crucial.
Trudy-Ann.
Thank you. Thank you guys again. Thank you.
Madam Chair, the next deputant is Elena Korniakova. I believe Ms. Korniakova is on the line.
Yes. Hi. Thank you.
We can hear you. You can go ahead.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. So I would like also, I support very much the previous deputant, and just to continue similar kind of direction, I'd like to mention that community benefit framework recommendations certainly cover and address very important aspects and challenges that many TCC communities are facing. But I would like to propose additional consideration. It's about the meantime, like before RFP actually will be issued and everything will be settled and start to be implemented. This gap is very kind of tragic for all the programs that already on hold, and there is no possibility to continue them. So this is the same issue. It's about the space and opportunities to continue programs like community-based grassroots programs. And the solution that was proposed by Councillor Fletcher on the previous meeting, I think on behalf of that group, we will greatly support this, and we wanted to see how it's moving on, and will it be possible to have this solution made prior to the summer, let's say, so we can reinstall the programs and continue do what we were doing, at least in this way. I wanted to say a few kind of arguments for that. Just a reminder that was stated by Councillor Fletcher last time, and for the summer 2021, the Lawrence Heights team has developed and raised funding for a series of outdoor art activities. And we will showcase the latest work of our artists, young architects and builders as part of our program. And TCHC management has acknowledged that they lack space to house the gallery for the LAC members, Lawrence Heights Art Center members. And shipping containers can be valuable assets for the community to run this summer exhibit program. so they can also offer ongoing opportunities in the near future for vibrant social enterprise that we also have in mind to develop with young participants. Moreover, our Young Architects program around developed a design concept using the latest technologies to how to transform regular shipping containers into an open gallery space and art workshop space. This group has prepared several versions of the space organization and structural compositions, and the LAC established a partnership with the fabrication company specializing in containers modifications to help complete one of the proposed designs. And the images of the designs, like one of them, I submitted previously. So on behalf of the artistic community of Lawrence Heights, I would like to recommend to the committee members kindly approve this proposal. We are happy to work with you every step of the way. We ask that you finalize the investigation into the opportunity to provide the containers for grassroots programs. We would like you to work with us to identify a location for the installation in Lawrence Heights, hopefully prior to the summer 2021. This decision would be vital for many participants of the programs that count over 250 residents of Lawrence Heights. The summer program, as we understand, as it will allow for positive community engagement and entrepreneurship activity in our diverse community. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Questions or comments for Elena? Not seeing any. Before we move on to our next presenter, Herbert Blaine, I will like to hand the chair over to Uba Farah. Unfortunately, I need to leave for another meeting. Uba, thank you all. And Uba, the chair is yours.
Madam Chair, the next deputant is Herbert Blaine. I understand that Mr. Blaine is on the line. Mr. Blaine?
Hello? Here.
Hi, Mr. Blaine. You can make your deputation. Hi. You've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with my friend, everything she said about we need some space. We started a program about 6 years ago, and it's worked quite well. We have all kinds of people from the community like joined the group, young children up to seniors. I'm a senior, by the way. I lived here for 26 years, and I find it quite a beautiful area, and I love the way people participate. When I moved here, the people, right away, I noticed they were putting in all these beautiful gardens, and I thought that was fantastic. So I was going to move away, but no way. We have like a little village here, and with the art community, which what happened is they are tearing the building down now, and we lost the space. And you know, it was doing so well. Like we had showings down to City Hall, and we have music and painting and sculpture, and the young kids used to come every Halloween to carve pumpkins and play games and watch outdoor movies. And what Elena said about if we had some permanent space, and even somebody was mentioning the containers. Well, if we had containers with a space, we have qualified people that can make them into something beautiful. Anyways, that's about all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blaine.
Thank you. Any question or comments?
If there are no questions, the next deputant is Tchc Fier. I understand that you've, Ms. Fier, you've got 5 minutes for your deputation. You can start any time.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, committee members. My name is Natasha Fier. I'm a resident of the Lawrence Heights community, a revitalization ambassador, and a community advocate. I make this oral deputation today to share my personal experience as a resident of the Lawrence Heights community and shed light on the positive aspects of community engagement. So despite having lived in this community for nearly 25 years, It was only until 2 years ago that I began to really become involved and engaged in my community as an advocate and as an active community member. Truthfully, due to the deep-rooted safety issues within TCHC communities, I was driven away from becoming involved, ultimately out of fear. But it wasn't until I had my daughter that I opened my eyes to the reality of my community and realized that to see change, I must be the change that I want to see. In these 2 short years of becoming more active in my community, I have evolved and grown more as an individual than I have in my entire life. It is with great pleasure that I honor and thank my fellow community members, the amazing women at the Revite office at 37 Varna, TCHC committee members that are dedicated to improve the foundational infrastructure of our communities, and members of parliament who have dedicated years of service. I applied to become a Revite ambassador back in 2019 and was accepted to the team. Since then, I have met so many of my neighbors who have helped to shape me who I am today. Revitalization ambassadors work as a bridge between TCHC and the tenants to make sure that the residents' voices are heard and that their concerns are addressed during the process of revitalization. So in 2019, I was offered a position as a program coordinator for the Oatmeal Cart program, where I led a team of amazing fellow residents to serve breakfast to the hardworking construction teams that are working on our new building. The residents I worked with live with disabilities, but in no way are they incapable. These individuals are some of the most hardworking people that I have met, and I was honored to work so closely with them. These programs are so important for our community, and I would like to see more like it in the future. In March of 2020, we were hit with the COVID-19 pandemic, but due to the hard work of the Revite team at 37 Varna, we ambassadors were able to embark on professional development training over Zoom and WebEx to expand our skills and increase our knowledge to better serve and engage our community. I had the pleasure of working with some of our youth that participated in the 37 Kids program, where I facilitated a workshop on critical thinking and social media. It is so important that we invest in our youth. They are the future, and they are so intelligent and capable, and we must acknowledge this. I have since joined the Lion Youth Action Committee and will continue to work in my community for the betterment of the youth. Recently, the Revite team and I have been engaging with the communities through employment and training questionnaire, where we engage with tenants to see what type of employment and training opportunities that they would like to see. And since my initial engagement in 2019, I have hosted virtual events such as Black Excellence in the Heights, where we honored and recognized the entrepreneurs and talent within the community. I have since been recruited as the Lawrence Heights Changemaker to the team of wonderful, like-minded individuals working towards making our communities a better place. Finally, I want to speak on the Confronting Anti-Black Racism strategy and how important it is that we get started on implementing the 8-point plan within the report. More specifically, I request that TCHC consider an affordable home ownership program such as rent-to-own so that residents can become more financially sound, more financially stable and independent, and so that units can move on to those that really need it and that are waiting on the housing list. All of the aforementioned has been made possible because I decided to take the step to become more involved in my community. I looked past the stigma surrounding our communities and recognized that we as residents are key stakeholders in the system. It is important that we as tenants our voices are not falling on deaf ears. We are tired of asking and are more than ready to seize the changes. The opportunities are endless, and it is imminent that we as residents are made to be part of the process of revitalization, that our voices are heard, and that we stay engaged so that we may grow and evolve, not only as individuals, but as a community. We are seeking meaningful, permanent investment in our community. Thank you for your time, and best regards.
Thanks for your deputation. Any comment, questions?
Just thank you for coming. And you mentioned that you were worried about community safety, and now you've been involved. Just tell us a little bit about your approach to community safety now, and what more you think needs to happen at Lawrence Heights.
Yes, absolutely. So prior to becoming involved, I was more just afraid to go outside, to be involved. I was frankly scared for my life. But I became involved with my community, and I met some of my wonderful fellow residents, my neighbors, and the TCHC staff that are working so hard to make our community a safer place. So now I'm more involved in the process. We have safety committees, we have our youth action committees, we have a lot of infrastructure in place so that we as tenants can speak on the safety issues that we feel. So it was only when I became involved in my community that I realized that there are systems like this in place. There are committees like this in place. So it definitely changed my vision and the way I see my community. But I would definitely, you know, cameras are a big thing, and I know we've been speaking about it often. But I was also interested in seeing maybe a neighborhood watch program happen in our community, so that, you know, when the CSU officers are not around, when the police is not around, or whatever the case may be, we have a group of residents, or us as a whole community, are looking out for each other and keeping an eye out to inform officers and safety units of what's going on.
And obviously, yes. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming today, being online.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? Yeah, Francis.
A question, but I just wanted to inform the chair that I have to leave at 12:30, just to give you a heads up.
All right, thank you.
Our next deputant is Denise Kwame. I understand Denise is on the line.
Hello, good day, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Denise Kwame, and I am a resident of Lawrence Heights for more than 10 years now. I currently serve as a Revite ambassador, co-chair for the safety committee, and also the community rep. I began working with TCHC as a community chef during the relocation process with the implementation of the 37 Kids program. During the past summer, I was also hired by TCHC along with Heights Development as a youth outreach coordinator, in which I supervise and monitor youths from the Lawrence Heights and Neptune area in engaging the community in outreach. A program that was centered focus for youth development. I was also recruited by TCHC and the relocation team in January to serve as a Revite ambassador to help engage tenants and other community partners in the relocation process, and to share updates on the process as well in relation to revitalization. Community to me means a lot. I believe to grow within a community, one must be proactive. To say that leads me to the most exciting and much appreciated moment in my community life that has changed my life and my whole life outlook. With all my involvement in community in Lawrence Heights, I was able to be one of the luckiest awarded recipients for the Heights Development Scholarship in 2018. I believe, and I know that the financial help was really helpful to me to pursue my career in the social work field. I am so grateful for such opportunity. The social and community building initiatives are very vital for residents who are planning to make changes both in their life and in community. We need so much more of those programs and opportunity within Lawrence Heights, Neptune, and Loudoun, and would love to see more implementation of training.
Oops.
We may have lost the deputant.
Seems like it.
Hello?
Oh, we've got you back. You can continue.
Thank you. In the past, I will never speak publicly in any event, but with such opportunity that was created within Lawrence Heights, I was able to gain knowledge and train in self-confidence and character building. Today, I'm happy and proud to say, because of those opportunities for me, I have excelled in my program at George Brown College and a proud honorarium graduate as well. I am now a registered social worker, and I'm currently working as an educational assistant within the TCDSB, and I'm strongly recommending TCHC to consider those programs as long-term for residents going forward in the other phases of revitalization. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to my deputation. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that you get all this support from this initiative. It's really nice to hear that. Any question or comment?
Just congratulations. on your
Thank you.
graduation. Good for you.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, our next deputant is Ida Boaja. I believe Ida is on the line.
Yes.
You've got 5 minutes and you can start
Okay.
anytime.
Greetings, everyone. It is an honor to be here. I am a resident of Lawrence Heights community. I am here to share my story and about how I started working with TSC. The previous team at the 7 Banner wasn't reaching out to us, the residents. So most of us didn't know what was happening within Lawrence Heights. So when the present team at 7 Banner started under the manager of, under Miss Raquel, the manager, and Vanessa and the team, we saw a change. The team reached out to residents in so many ways, through flyers, phone calls, emails, talking to us about changes that were happening in the Lawrence site. The feedback we got, we gave them, made them to realize that tenant engagement is necessary. So in 2016, they sent out flyers about tenants joining a committee called Engagement Approach. I indicated my interest because I wanted my voice and suggestion to be heard more. I wanted to experience what is going on that residents didn't know and pass the information to fellow residents. Doubting the revitalization program. Some say it will not see the light of day. Some say we will be put in a box as our units. Some said that the TCAC will not be fully involved and the developer will cut corners and sideline tenants. Through my being part of the committee of engagement approach, I was able to explain to tenants that none of these issues raised by them will happen. This continual engagement with tenants led to the setting up of Revite ambassadors, which I'm presently part of. So the Revite ambassadors started with us, I think, 2020, January, and we were able to engage with the residents as fellow residents. They were able to believe us because they know that we live there. So they know that whatever we tell them is what we are fighting for every one of them. So we do door-to-door outreach. We talk to the residents about relocation. So we tell them what to do, and then we help out. So in fact, the residents even will talk to us about the maintenance issues that they are having at their apartments or their units. So the beauty of the Revite is what made me to join Revite microgrants. So the aforementioned, I joined the aforementioned because of my participation at the city level, which is the City of Toronto microgrants. I was part of the resident team, which were selected by the city, where we went through the applications from various TCAC housing all over Toronto with the guidelines set by the city. We were able to score points and fund those that met the guidelines. So with such experience, I was excited to be part of the localized venture at Lawrence Heights and Neptune, which was called the Revite Microgrant for Lawrence Heights and Neptune. So flyers were sent, so I participated, and in the process of doing that, residents were really, really excited because it was an opportunity for them to participate in this, because a lot of them have ideas of what to do, but they don't know how to go about it. The fund from TCAC range from $1,000 to $3,000. So we went through over 100 applications from various groups and individuals in the community. And there are some of them I could talk about. The one that was topmost to my heart, Boys to Men, where they will get the men to mentor boys in the neighborhood.
also, I must say that the tenants came up with so many ideas regarding rewrite microgrants. So another one that I participated in was the 37 case. Not that I participated, my case, through my commitment to a lot of programs in Lawrence Heights, I encouraged my kids to join 37 kids. And from what I gathered, it was able to give kids the ability to experience what it means to work, understanding Lawrence Heights neighborhood and interacting with kids of their age grade. It also helped them to communicate. It was able to help in their communication skills and customer service skills. In fact, I have to just share this. My daughter said that anytime they are going there, that is, especially the senior side, the seniors are always happy to see them, interact with them, because they go there to give them plants. They want to grow as food and for decoration. Some of the seniors were having a long conversation with the kids because they said they don't even have friends to talk to. They don't even have so many people. Some are even saying that their friends were already dead. So anytime there's
5 minutes is finished, so if you can finish up, please.
Okay. Sorry?
Your 5 minutes is up for your deputation, so if you could just wrap up.
Yeah. Okay. So all the initiatives that we've had on the Lawrence Heights have really benefited the residents and the kids, especially those ones in high school. So I would urge that these initiatives or programs and more should come to our neighborhood and Neptune. Thank you.
Thank you for your interpretation. Any question or comment?
So if there are no questions, the next deputant is Lakesh Bogala, and I believe Lakesh is on the line.
Yes.
You've got 5 minutes. You can start your deputation at any time.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Lakesh Bogala. I am a resident of Lawrence Heights, and thank you very much for the opportunity given to me to talk about myself and my experience, how I started with revitalization. And one of my friends, he always invited me to the meeting where there were intensive meetings before the building started. So many times I got flyers, phone calls about the meeting in committee. So I start involving in the different meetings. After that, I said I want to see change. So what shall I do? I have to involve. So I became very familiar with developers, with Varna 37, Vanessa, with Raquel. So I asked them if there is any committee I can participate. And always I tell them, oh, I want to see change, even I don't get the chance to move into a new building. I just want to see change in Lawrence Heights. So how I became the committee member of naming, street naming. So it was very interesting. I learned a lot, how the old name given and other list of names to avoid repetition. The name already given to other part of Toronto. So we have to be careful, and they are very welcoming, very friendly when we have a meeting about how we're going to sort out, how to select names. Actually, we are not. We just give chance to the tenant. So we send out papers. People can if they have any name, to give us and why they choose that name. It could be individual name, or it could be mountain, it could be river, whatever they want, and they have to reason out what they choose the name. So it is very highly interesting. So I became like a family, and I want to be continue even in the future because of this COVID. A little bit we don't see each other physically. And also if I have any problem in my unit, actually I moved 2 years ago to the new building. I was a resident in Bagot Court, the first phase. So I got chance to move into the new building over 2 years now, November past 2 years. And if I have any issues, I always call Vanessa. If I leave a message, right away she answers my calls. And if she can't help me, whatever I want help with, she helps me. Raquel too. So I want to appreciate them for that. And I want to continue in any means of involving in the second and third phase. If I can't help in anything or if there is a meeting, I don't want to miss it. I want to contribute. So I want to add my voice. I have to stand for my community, not just sitting home and asking others, oh, what's going on? No, I have to participate. I have an interest to participate. Whatever contribution I can contribute, I have to contribute to my community. So, and my son, I have a special needs son. So he involved in Varna 37 kids. Summer, he got summer job. So Vanessa, Raquel, they welcomed my son, even he has challenges. They give him chance to participate. I'm very, very, very glad for that. So other kids can support him, can show him when he works with them around the community. So summer 2018, my son was participated in Varna 37 kids. So I appreciate and I would like to say thank you so much for helping him to involve, not behind, left him behind because of the challenges he has. I appreciate that too, and I want them to continue helping kids with special needs in our community. I don't know many of them. I know one young man in Bagot Court. He's always around, outside, but I never spoke to his parents, and I want to support even family parents who has challenge of with their children have challenge of special need. So my son is now finishing high school this year. He's graduating grade 12 at John Polanyi. So all this support I got from my community helping my son. We try him to go to Humber River College. He did recently interview. We're waiting for the response. If we got acceptance, he's going to Humber River College, my son, for a 1-year program. So I want to support even families with all these challenges, and I can share with them my experience. Thank you very much. I am finished.
Thank you very much. Any question, comments?
Not really, because of this COVID. We don't see each other. I don't go physically to the office. Maybe when we get better and with this big challenge of COVID, we may have question or we have to think more how we can support the revitalization and help our community to become better place to live and help our users and families with different.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lakesh. If there are no questions of Ms. Bagala, our last deputant is Sean Morrison. I believe Sean is on the line.
Can I just do a time check? Because I think, Francis, did you say you have to leave at 12:30?
I'm doing interviews.
Okay,
So
and I have something coming up, so we're on it to crunch. Not to push Sean, but there, 5 minutes. Well, 5 have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sean Morrison, I believe, is on the line.
Yes, I am.
Sean, we've got you've got 5 minutes for your deputation. You can start at any time.
Okay. My name is Sean Morrison, and I'm with City of Toronto Parks, Forestry and Recreation. Run out of the Lawrence Heights Community Center. And we've been working in partnership with Toronto Community Housing in the Lawrence Heights area for at least the past 7 years anyway that I've been working directly with them. Some of the things that we have been doing throughout that time is everything from hosting events together. So we've worked together on numerous projects, including job fairs that we've offered here. We've done 3 years of a back-to-school event where Toronto Housing has been one of the organizations that has set up tables to give information to the general public in regards to the revitalization process. We have worked 7 years together on the holiday event, and we have done 1 year of the solstice event and 4 years of a Black History Month event. And in all of those events, these are things that Toronto Housing has participated as either a partner in the event or as a vendor at the event, displaying information, presenting more information in regards to their revitalization project. Some of the other things that we have done together is there was a Heights Development Program which was established in the community connected to the revitalization project, and they worked in giving access to youth and younger adults as part of an apprenticeship program, and they worked on redesigning our entire kitchen in the community center, as well as the back end of our building, which used to be a garden area, is now a patio walkway. And we've relocated the garden area to a central area, which used to be the playground. And that area was completely redone in partnership with the city as well as with Toronto Housing, which included building planter boxes, and we laid down some pavement, and they brought in some grass, and we were able to start up a garden program for the entire community, as well as for our recreation programs that we host out of Lawrence Heights as well. And throughout this time, dating all the way back to probably about 2013, there have been about 60 to 70 occurrences that I have pulled up in my system. I'm also responsible for permits at this location, but there are about 60 to 70 occurrences where Toronto Housing has hosted community cafes, hosted events in regards to the revitalization project, and they have also done some presentations directly with our Lions network, which is the Lawrence Heights Interorganizational Network, sitting on some of the subcommittees, as well as hosting some of the events out of their location. The steering committee has been hosting out of that location, and then the general memberships usually host out of our location. Now, as I said earlier, we are the 2 largest service providers within the area, so we have been working together for quite some time because we found that it is very effective to reach a lot of the clientele, a lot of the patrons that come within the community, and a lot of the residents that live within the community have come to rely on both organizations to provide them the services that they are looking for. Along with the final things, they have also done some presentations for the revitalization project at the 37 Varna location, where they've invited both organizations as well as residents to come out to the presentations, and those were done quite frequently. So we always were updated in regards to what was happening in the community. And we have also hosted some of those training sessions as well through Toronto Employment Social Services out of the Lawrence Square Mall. And that's everything.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for the debatant?
Yeah, I have one question.
Go ahead, Francis.
Yeah.
You are muted.
with all these community meetings that were held, the local councilor's been involved in all of them as well?
So when it was under Councillor Josh Cole, he did attend quite frequently some of the general meetings as well as some of the subcommittee meetings. He had come out in attendance. I have not, I mean, we haven't really had the opportunity to do a lot of meetings since Councillor Mike Cole took over and has been in the area. So I can't really speak in regards to how many times he's been out, because we really, I mean, since the time he's come out, we've been under COVID for about half of that point. But prior to that, Councillor Josh Cole was attending some of those meetings as well.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
So if there are no further questions of the deputant, I understand that Will Mendez and Raquel are on the line with Vince Tong to speak to this item.
Thank you, Dara. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm just going to, can I just interrupt for a second? It's 12:23. Francis leaving at 12:30, and I'm leaving at 12:30. So I'd just like some guidance as to how we're going to deal with this, because it's pretty meaty. Does it have to be done today?
What we can do is, if subject to advice from development staff, having heard all of the deputants on the matter, if it doesn't need to be addressed today, we can defer committee's consideration of the matter to the next meeting. We would not afford deputants a further opportunity, but we could refer the remainder of the matter to the next meeting of the committee.
So I just need to be clear. The purpose is to provide the Tenant Services Committee with an overview of Tenant Benefit Agreement framework. Are we approving the framework? Are we just getting information on the framework? Is there a deadline for this framework?
I understand it to be an information report and not a report for the committee's approval.
So we're not approving anything. All we can have are some suggestions as to if we think it's or questions. That's it. When did the committee approve the benefit framework?
Through the chair, Councillor, the committee hasn't approved the community benefits framework. We're presenting what the framework is now. Correct.
And you're expecting an approval?
This was for information. Yeah, it wasn't for approval, but if the committee would like that oversight, we're happy to request that.
I think things have moved to where we'd like that oversight. So is there a deadline here that you need this at our board meeting, or what?
No, I think we can wait till we're happy to defer to the next meeting. I would actually have to ask Raquel, because I know she's leading some of the engagement pieces around this. So we're working to gear up towards a summer RFP launch. So it would be dependent on Raquel's work plan around the engagement pieces.
Yeah, there's an engagement piece and community, and then there's also a corporate expectation around community benefits, which both will marry up at some point. So I would just like to suggest that it was great to hear from all the tenants. It gave us such a great view of what's happening there. There might be some questions of staff around that, but I would like to be able to have a longer discussion. So I'd like to move this to the next meeting. We've had so much on our agenda, big issues here today, and I want to do them all justice, if that's possible, Dara.
And just to provide guidance, the next meeting of this committee is on May 4th. That will report up through to the board at its meeting on June 15th. So for development staff who are considering whether or not we need to arrange something further before the April meeting of the board, that's the timeline that you would be working with if this gets deferred to the next meeting of the committee.
Derek, could we just move deferral of this or refer this to the board without recommendation and then discuss it further at the full board meeting and then give it its final approval at the next board meeting?
John, My motion is to defer it to the next Tenant Services Committee, simply because I think there's a lot of questions and I don't know how much information is going to be on the board. It's going to be a big board meeting too. So I don't want it to get lost. So I'd rather hear, if you don't mind, hear if that's an okay pathway to go to May 4th and then be at June board. If that's not significant, if that doesn't work, then we'd have to have it go without recommendation to the board. I think that's, if you don't mind, I'd like that first.
I'm fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
So,
So
for
basically, yeah, Dara?
for development staff, if this gets approved at the board on June 15th, does that do violence to your work plan?
Violence.
No, I think I think from the tenant benefit perspective, we're fine with that timeline. I think we're anticipating to start the engagement process around April, but I don't think that the two necessarily need. I think we could start the engagement process first, despite the tenant benefits moving at a later date.
Great. So that's my motion then.
Okay. I'll second
That's
it.
okay with you, John. Seems like we can
Yeah.
manage that way, right? Thank you.
I'll second that.
I'll second that, yeah.
So if there's no opposition to that, I think we've got a motion to affect that. I have received advice from Cynthia Summers that the two matters from the Office of the Commissioner of Housing Equity can be deferred.
Yes.
Those are the items and under item 8 till the next Tenant Service Committee meeting.
Good. I was going to move the deferral. So that's
So-
good to know.
And then that leaves item 9. And Jill, I think is on the line to speak to that one, but we would need a motion to defer both of those items under item 8 from the committee.
Darryl, I'll move that, and I also would suggest they could be put, you probably would do the same way, be put at the
Yes.
top of the next tenant services meeting.
Yeah, we would make these 3 items, items 1, 2, 3, we'll high on the agenda for the next meeting.
So we're not, the board is not approving 145 Strathmore. This is for information, so we can hear that at the next meeting. That's good. I do have that letter that's on the agenda. I'd just like to move it if we can, then close off.
So I'll take the committee's direction on the letter. What did you want to move receipt? Did you want to move direction to staff based on the request in the letter?
Yes, I think we'd just like to know more about how it was handled at the TCHC end. So we know how it was handled at the TPS end.
We can report back to the committee at the next meeting.
That'd be great.
We can talk about how to do that.
Sure. Thank you, Dara.
My pleasure. So a motion to defer the remainder of the agenda till the next meeting of the committee?
So moved.
And I just want to thank all the staff. That was a heavy meeting, 4.5 hours of big topics, and all the deputants that came today. And Uba, good job in the chair.
Thank you.
Same for Debbie.
And then I think we only need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. So
This is your last meeting, Kevin. Any last words?
It was a meaty meeting, I agree.
It was a meaty meeting.
And I am sure you will have many more meetings.
Okay.
Take care. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.